Okay, we are back to do the second half of the service, Acts the 7th chapter. Hey, buddy, come back. Get your Bibles, pads. What did you say? Hos? That's Acts? Hos? Hos 7. All right. So we're going to pick up Adam chapter in the first verse. So it said, then said the high priest, are these things so? Right? After everybody, listen to the false witnesses give their testimony against Stephen, the high priest who was leading the council or presiding over the council turns to Stephen and says, is this right? Right? Verse 2. And he, Stephen, said, men, brethren, fathers, hearken. The power of glory appeared unto our father Abraham when he was in Mesopotamia, before he dwelt in Haran, and said unto him, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, and come into the land which I shall show thee. Right? So now he's going to go into some history pertaining to our forefather Abraham and how he came into the promises of the Most High. Write down Genesis chapter 11. Genesis chapter 11, verse 31. So Genesis chapter 11. And verse 31, it says, and Terah took Abraham, or Abram, his son. This was before Abraham had his name changed to the father of many nations. Here's his father. His son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son. Right? It says, and Sarah's his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. Right? So this is speaking about Abraham's father taking his family. They were going to go to Canaan. Right? But on the way to Canaan, they left Ur of the Chaldees, or the region where the Chaldeans, ancient Babylonians, or that area known as the Chaldee, left that region and then came to a place called Haran. In Acts 7 and 2, it says Haran, Charran. In the Old Testament, it's just Haran, Haran. It's the same. It's the same thing, right? Same place. Huh? I did. It says, and they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan, and they came unto Haran and dwelt there. Right? So they were going to the land, but they stopped and stayed in Haran. Right? It says, and the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. So imagine that. Genesis 11:31 to 32. Terah was 200 years. Right? So when we start thinking about how things are gonna go to its former age, we was reading about the widows being taken not under 60 years old. And we read about the widow Anna, the prophetess, who was 84 years old, serving the Most High. Right? Those are what we look at or deem to be a person who's lived a long life. You reach 80, 90 years old, you lived a long life. You reach 100 years old, man, you on extra time. You on overtime, right? That's how they look at it, right? Now you make the news. You on the news when somebody reaches 101 or 102, 103 years old, right? But here, Abraham's father Terah died at 205 years old. Unheard of right now, right? I don't know if anyone's reached 110 in the past, many decades. But this one is a 205. So when you fast forward and you read in Revelations, right? I'm gonna deviate real quick. Go to Revelations. Revelations, I think it's the 20th chapter. Yep. 20. Revelations chapter 20. It's this one. Give me 1 second. Revelation is the 20th chapter. And the 4th verse. Revelations 20 and 4. So it says, and I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua and for the word of God, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither have received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years, right? That's going back to the beginning from the time of Adam, when men lived 900 and something thousand years. And the reason was because sin was introduced back then, and that began to cut down the lifespan. Wickedness began to prevail more and more and more. So the more wickedness, the less people had to live in the earth, right? The earth began to wane on using its strength and predominantly dealing with how man lived in the earth, right? Remember, the wages of sin is death. So the more sin abounded, the less men lived in the earth, starting from the beginning when we were supposed to live for longer periods of time, like 1,000 years. So when now Christ comes back, those 144,000, they're going to be reigning with Christ for the full 1,000 years, right? For a full 1,000 years, a person is going to reign on the earth with Christ. Now, some will speculate and say, well, what happens after the 1,000 years is up? Will we just die, right? Or will we continue on? Will now I be removed from being a king or of a person of a high position, and I become an elder now, and I become an elder for 1,000 years? And so it doesn't go into that. Or will I be just taken up, right? Like how Elijah was taken up, Enoch was taken up, Ezra was taken up into the third heaven. They never saw death. They was just translated in that rest. Will that happen, right? You can speculate on how that's going to happen after the 1,000 years, but that's again what the scriptures say: 1,000 years you will reign with Yahushua.
Thank you. I thought about that too. I thought about it, just like wow, because it said that to swallow it up. But explain this to me. Isaiah 65 and 20.
Well, that's located at
Revelations 20 and 4.
Okay, good. Thank you. Great.
Isaiah 65 and 20. There shall be no more thence an infant of days, nor an old man that had not filled his days.
Mm-hmm.
For the child shall die 100 years old,
Mm-hmm.
but the sinner, being 100 years old, shall be accursed.
Right. So when it goes into there shall no more thence be an infant of days, nor an old man that have not fulfilled his days, meaning in the kingdom, right? Once you get into the kingdom, you won't be a person like how it is today when you're 80 something years old and you die at a certain point. It says the old man is going to fulfill his time. You're going to live out the time, the full life, how a man is supposed to live in the earth. An infant will be as if he was 100 years old. So you look at a kid who's like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You call him a little small little boy. He's a little infant, right? But now when you're 100 years old, the same way we look at a kid who's just 8, 9, 10 years old, we're going to look at somebody who's 100 years old. He's still going to be in his youth, right? Remember when we read about Moses and Joshua, they was 80 and 90 years old. But they said, I can still go out to war. I still got my strength. I can still go fight. You got brothers who 55, 50 years old, 55 years old, and they walking like this, and they shuffling their feet, and they can't move. They don't got their breath and their stamina. It's not going to happen like that in the kingdom, right? And you got different ailments and different issues that you got going on in your body, a disease here, your sight is not good. No, it's not going to happen in the kingdom, right? We're going to be immortal. So to be immortal mentally and physically, you have to be able to now live for long periods of time. So as it says, there shall be no more thence an infant of days, meaning he only lived a short amount of time to be classified as an infant. Now he's a man because he's 20 or he's 18. 100 years old is still like that person, right? It says, nor an old man that have not fulfilled his days. For the child shall die 100 years old. It's not to say that every child is going to die once he reaches 100. It means that once he becomes 100 years old, he's no more classified as a child. Now he's moved on, and like how people say you go from a child to an adolescent or to a teenager, right? When you reach your teens, now you are a young adult, and then you become an adult. Within 20 years, you've gone from a child to an adult. Right? But in the kingdom, 100 years, you'll still be a child, right? Not a child at heart where you don't know nothing, right? Where you can't process things. You're not an adult yet. No, it's talking about as far as for that lifespan to quantize 1,000 years, man, it's like your 100 years, you're still in your youth. That's how much time we're going to have on the earth. That's how long we're going to live. We can't even think about it. No man that's living right now can conceptualize living and reigning for 1,000 years because all we have in our mind is 70, 80, 90 years old. That's normal, right? You got some people who say that I don't even want to get to 90 years old. I don't want to reach 90 years old because from what I see, when I'm 90 years old, I can't take care of myself. I got to have somebody going bringing me food and getting this for me. If I got to go through all that, and I'm ready to go. I hope I go way before then. I've heard people tell me these things. And you're like, Dad, for real? Yeah, I don't want to be like that. I want to still be able to do something. If I can't do something for myself, man, I'm ready to check out. Right? But in this sense, you'll be in your strength and you'll be able to live a long period of time to enjoy the earth. Right? To enjoy the earth. You work today, and this is the system that Esau has set up. You work for about, what they say, 63, 65 years, right? So you 62 to 65 years. 62 is the early, 65 is your full, right? You get retirement, where now you've built up so much money that now you can just sit back and relax at 65. Why 65 years old? At 65, some people, they got these issues. They can't really enjoy life at 65. They can't really move about like that at 65. But that's how they set up in hopes that you're going to die before you get to 65, right? So that you never see that money. You never get that 401. You never get those IRAs. That's like somehow it goes somewhere else or it stays in the kitty, right? So in this sense, when you're 100, you still a kid, so to speak, in the Most High's eyes. You're still a young youth. and you're going to be able to go out and do certain things, right? So now let's go back to Genesis. We finished up in Genesis with this history that Stephen's bringing out. Genesis 11:31 again. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarah his daughter-in-law, and Sarah and his son Abram's wife. And they went forth with them from Ur of the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years. And Terah died in Haran. Verse 12, chapter 12, verse 1. And the Lord said unto Abram, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make thee a great nation, and I will bless thee and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. So he did not get to Canaan. When his father died in Haran, they stayed there. And they still had some of their family of the Hebrews that was dwelling in that land. But the Most High then came to Abraham after a point in time and said, you got to leave here. Leave your family members. And I'm getting you up to a place that I'm going to show you, which was Canaan. Right? That's where they was going in the beginning, but they never got there. They stopped and stayed at Haran. Right? So here in verse 3, and I will bless them that bless thee, and I will curse him that curseth thee. It says, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. Really talking about what?
The fallen of us be the riches of the world, right?
The
fallen of us be the riches of the world? Oh. Deuteronomy 28:15. 1-15.
Is he talking about all the nations of the 12 tribes? Everybody on the planet?
That's the question. Yeah, that's the question.
He's talking about all the nations.
He's talking about all nations, meaning what? To what capacity?
What verse you on?
Everybody on the planet.
I'm in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3.
Whoa. Say that again. Come on.
Genesis 12 and 3.
Hey, Genesis.
So how would every nation be blessed by Abraham?
Oh, the question is how.
Right, because it says in Genesis 3 and 4, Genesis 12 and 3, pages, and I will bless them that bless thee, and I will curse him that curseth thee. Then it says, and in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed.
But he said it in the first part. Whoever curses you, I'll curse, and whoever bless you, I'll bless. So that's how they're going to get blessing. I'll bless you.
But what if they don't curse you?
Then they don't get no blessing, they get cursed. By following us, they get a blessing.
All right. Okay. So what we're gonna do? I'm a.
Not going around the room.
Huh?
Not go around the room.
No. I'm a table this one for a good class topic, because it's a good class topic because it correlates to certain things that's in the New Testament, right? So because it's like 70 verses in this chapter, and I know there's a lot of link ups to this. We're going to table this Genesis 12 and 3 for a class. You know how we say at the end of the class, anybody got any questions, save it for a class? We're going to save it for a class to go into what this is talking about, right? What is the depths of this verse? Because it correlates and parallels to different layers and different things, all right? So we're going to note this for a class to go into next week, most High will. All right, Gabar or somebody, make sure you get in the class, bring it up. Hey man, this Mark's talking about this Genesis 12 and 3. We need to get understanding of Genesis 12 and 3. All right. So going back to Acts 7, we read Genesis 11:31-32, and then we read Genesis 12:1-4. We'll go back to Acts 7. Yeah, and I read Revelations 20 and 4. Come on. Mm-hmm. Let me write these down. I didn't write those down. Isaiah 65, 20. That's what we read. 65, 20. Revelations 20 and 4. All right. So reading verse 3 again, it says, and said unto him, get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred, and I will come into the land which I will show thee. Then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans and dwelt in Haran, right? And from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land wherein ye now dwell, right? So the land that they were dwelling in, that they were in at that moment, that Stephen was in the council, was where? Where was this council taking place that Stephen was now being accused of speaking blasphemous words?
Rome?
Israel. They was in Israel, right? Because it says the Most High told Abraham to get out of Haran and then go to Canaan. The land of Israel was formerly known as the what? The land of Canaan. That the Most High allowed Joshua and those that was during his time to go and conquer and to defeat and remove them out of the land, right? So this is what he's saying now, that they came out of the land of the Chaldees. Some people will use certain scriptures like this, right, to say or signify or validate their belief. Meaning, like when Israel first became a nation, where did Israel become a nation? I'm talking about us, our nation. When did Israel become a nation?
What year?
Not what year. Where, when, at what point when you read the scriptures did Israel become a nation?
But not when Jacob's name was changed to Israel. It's not.
So we became a nation, right? Go to Exodus. Chapter 1. This is Exodus chapter 1, verse 1. So Exodus chapter 1, verse 1, it says, now these are the names of the children of Israel, which came into Egypt. Every man and his household came with Jacob. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, and Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Jacob were 70 souls. For Joseph was in Egypt already. And Joseph died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. So all of the 70 that came out the first with Jacob and the rest of his brothers, they all died, right? But then it says in verse 7, and the children of Israel were fruitful and increased abundantly and multiplied and waxed exceeding mighty. And the land was filled with them. So where did Israel fully become a nation as he began to multiply and become fruitful? While we was in Egypt. The patriarchs came into Egypt coming out of famine, right? So some people will say, Egyptologists will say, wait, you guys are against Egyptology. You guys are so much against Egypt saying that y'all not Egyptians, but according to your records, your Bible, you first really became a nation when you was in Egypt. That's when you guys became fruitful and multiplied. So technically, you are Egyptian. Why y'all fighting against being Egyptian so much, right? Because they're following the ideologies of current standards where it says the place that you are born is who you are. That's what they're looking at. They're saying the place where you are born, that's what you are. So if Gabar left here 20 years ago and went to China and met had a wife and had a child, his child is now Chinese, right? So then when he starts coming and speaking pro-Israelite stuff, they're going to say, hold on, but you Chinese. You can't talk that Chinese talk. You Chinese. Well, hold on. Just because I went and dwelt in the land and I had a family in the land, that doesn't mean that I am of those people who set that up, right? That land was founded and now run by them. I'm just a stranger in the land that built up a family in the land. That's not me, right? I got citizenship there, but that's not my nativity, right? So what the Most High did with Abraham, not even Abraham, Terah, he said, listen, y'all leave this region, go over to this region, right? Because what I'm going to do, I'm going to make you become a nation. At the time Terah and Abraham and them was there, they weren't a nation yet, right? The Lord said, in time come, I'm going to make you become this nation. So while they were in Haran, that wasn't it. Just because they dwelt there, they were just passing through. When they came to Canaan, that's the place that the Most High said, I'm going to make you a nation, right? So now Israel began to become fruitful while in Egypt. The Lord had promised them the land of Canaan. That land was already named after the Hamites. We became a people while in Egypt. So be careful sometimes when you read in the Old Testament, when you see the word Egypt and it says, Egypt, my people. You say, hold on, how is the people of Egypt the Most High's people? Well, the scriptures tell you that Israel was one with Egypt, meaning we dwelt in their land. We was amongst them, right? So it's like the citizenship that Paul had. He was Roman, right? So Paul said, yeah, I'm a Roman. Going to do that to me, a Roman? But was he an actual heathen? Was he an actual Edomite? No, he just took that title upon him, right? So now when you look at people who was in Egypt, the nation grew up in Egypt, we was just in the land. We were strangers in the land. And the Most High made that a point to tell us that we were strangers in Egypt. Don't abhor an Egyptian, because you were strangers in that land. That's not you. You was a stranger in that land, right? So when we came out, the Lord told us not to abhor an Edomite, not to abhor an Egyptian. And then events happened to change that whole course, right? Now,
So you saying that we became a nation in Egypt?
right. The nation began to flourish and become, a great 12 tribes of people. Joseph was already there. His tribe didn't become what we read in, go to Genesis 30, I think it's 33. Go to Genesis 35, not 33, 35. Genesis 35. And 11. So Genesis 35 and 11. And God, now hold on, before I read this, right? Because let's not get it confused. Remember, when Isaac and Rebekah had Jacob and Esau, what did the Most High say to Isaac and to Rebekah? Two nations are in your womb, right? So now when we talk about nation, the nation started from the womb of Rebekah, right? Our nation and Esau's nation. But we didn't become a full nation of people until we began to multiply exceedingly when we was in Egypt, right? All 12 tribes of us. Joseph was there already, as we just read. He didn't have a whole bunch of kids that became a big tribe yet. He had a couple kids, Manasseh and Ephraim, right? Ephraim and Manasseh. Those were his two kids that they met. Jacob met when he came there. So we weren't a full nation yet until that generation died and we began to repopulate, and then it became a nation, right? So this is Genesis 35 and 11, and God said unto him, I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation Israel, and a company of nations, the 12 tribes within Israel, shall be of thee, and kings shall come out of thy loins. So that was what we needed to be, and we became that while in Egypt. A company of nations built up the whole nation, right? A company of nations built up the whole nation. So when the Lord delivered Israel out of Egypt, we was a full up nation then, right? A full up nation. We wasn't a full up nation when Joseph was there by himself with his 2 sons.
We were a nation as soon as Jacob had his 12 children.
I just said we was a nation before Jacob had his 12 children. The Lord told Rebekah, 2 nations is in your womb. Right? From the womb, there was a nation, the progenitor of being a nation, right? But we didn't establish ourselves as a nation because Jacob, he wasn't even privy to all of that. That's why when the situation happened with Esau and Jacob, what did Rebekah do? She knew what the Most High's plan was. She made it so that Jacob got the blessing and Esau didn't get the blessing. Jacob fully didn't understand. I mean, Isaac didn't fully understand that whole thing. She did, right? So she went and did that because she knew what the son Jacob was going to become, a favorite person of the Most High who was going to be this progenitor of the large picture, right? The large picture happened when we was in Egypt, right? The large picture took all of us out, all 12 tribes, the company of nations out, and then we went there. So when now people today, I'm speaking of the Egyptologists today, they say, you guys became a nation when you was in Egypt. Sure, we can go to scriptures in Genesis 25 and say, no, we was a nation in the stomach. But people look at quantities of people, right? So yeah, that verse in Exodus says that we became fruitful and multiplied while we was in Egypt. So they'll say, see, that scripture shows you that that's when y'all nation became a nation. You became prominent. So much so that the new Pharaoh was afraid of how many of y'all it was. And they put y'all in captivity as a nation, all 12 tribes. So again, that's when you go into the distinction that the land doesn't determine who we are. Right? The land doesn't determine who we are. We determine the land, right? That's when Esau goes places. What does he do?
Take over.
Not only did he take over, what does he do? He does what? He changed the names. He changed the names to what he wants the names to be, right? When we got into the land of Canaan, what do? We changed the names. It wasn't called the land of Canaan. Now it's the land of Israel. The city of Jerusalem was the city Jebusite before, because the Jebusites had that area in Israel. But when we now got it, it was Jerusalem, the city of peace. So man changes the name. The land doesn't make the people, right? That's how it is. So when people say, oh, y'all was over there in that land, no, the land didn't make us who we were. We were who we were before we got there. The Most High had already told us that we was going to be a nation before we got there. Our nativity starts from where the Most High said. Yahweh.
So you say verse 7?
Right.
Exodus 1 verse 7, then we first became a nation.
You ain't hear all of what I just said.
Don't say it again.
You not hear everything I just said? I said, if you want to be technical, we were a nation in the womb of Rebekah. Right? But to be a company of nations like it describes in Genesis 35 and 11, that happened when we was in Egypt. A nation and a company of nations. What does it mean when it says a company of nations in Genesis 35 and 11? What does a company of nations mean? Huh? Many tribes? More. Some more. You gotta come more.
Many tribes.
A company of nations.
Out of that. Israel, 12 nations came out of the tribe.
That's even better, right? Out of the one nation of Israel, you have 12 nations to make up the one, right? The so-called Negroes is like a nation unto themselves. The so-called Puerto Ricans are like a nation unto themselves. The so-called Haitians is a nation unto themselves. The Jamaicans, the West Indians, like a nation unto themselves. The Mexicans is like look at their landmass where they live at. They're like a nation unto themselves. You go overseas and you'll have certain Edomite countries. They smaller than Delaware, but they are like their own people, right? But the Most High had each one of our sons, the patriarchs, would be now a nation unto themselves. a company of them. So like how you go out to the military and you got 100,000 people, soldiers. You know what Esau does? He breaks you up into companies. He says 100 of you going to go over there, 100 you over there, 100 you over there. You're company A, your company B, your company C, but you're all the U.S. Army. Your companies. But now with Israel, the Most High said you're like the sand of the sea. Nobody can number you. That's how big the company of nations is. So when you look at Ephraim or you look at Benjamin, you got Jamaica, Turks and Caicos, Barbados. You got all these different islands of people, and then they scattered themselves in different places. So now you're like, man, that's a whole nation almost right there amongst just Benjamin. But Benjamin is still one tribe of the whole conglomerate Israel, right? So that's why when you go into the company of nations, when you look at what is said in Exodus, it said that Joseph was already there. Joseph was one of the sons of Jacob, right? He had 2 sons, right? So now when you look at for its optics, that man, that's like me going to Gabar and saying, how many sons you got? You got 2, 3 sons? Is you a company, a nation right now? You only got 3 sons. You're not a nation, right? Until I start seeing hundreds and 400 and 500 and 600, then you can start looking at a person or a people because of the majority, the quantity of them. But we got the insight of the Most High that we knew that even before one son was born, that man was going to produce a whole nation. And not only a nation, but a company of nations. This was already prophesied to Abraham before Isaac even met Rebekah, right? He already knew that before that happened. So the Lord was setting the stage up. But again, this is for these naysayers today that go into history and then look at the origins of Israel, and they'll use our own book and say, see, you guys began to become fruitful and wax abundantly when you was in Egypt. So how you coming against us talking about Egyptology as hogwash when your history starts in Egypt? That's what they say. I've seen Polite and them do that. Right? But again, we are not of the land. The land doesn't determine who we are. Right? The land didn't determine Abraham. That's why the Most High told Abraham, listen, get you up out of the land of the Chaldees. He was dwelling there for a period of time. So one would have said, and they have said, that Abraham was a Chaldean. That's where they was dwelling, him and his father. They was born, they grew up there, and then they left. But that's where they came from. But the Most High had other plans. No, that's not who you're going to be identified with. You and your seed are going to come to this land. Matter of fact, Abraham, leave that place, and I'm going to show you the place that you are going to live in and own, and the rest of your seeds after you. But you won't see it right now in that generation, because he was going to die before Joshua went and conquered it, right? It was going to have to come back in the regeneration of the spirit, where he was now going to be able to see that land and enjoy it. But it didn't happen in his time. But the Lord told him that it was going to be his and those that came out of his posterity. All right. So again, don't get confused as far as for Israel being a nation in Egypt. We was a nation from the heavens, if you even want to be more technical, because Romans the 9th chapter says before they was even in the womb, the Lord had chosen who he wanted to choose. He sets everything up. All the stories happens in the heavens, right? But for those technical people who like to deal with different histories and things of that nature and go to the detail, that's where you now can show that this was something that was set up, right? And then we got the land of Canaan and we became the children of Israel. Even here, while we're in the book, in Exodus, we was known as the children of Israel, right? And then we became the nation of Israel, the house of Israel, all the same thing, right? What's that's like someone saying, trying to remember Gabar's, Rodney. Yeah, the sons of Rodney. These are Rodney's children. These are Rodney's kids, right? The children of Rodney, coming from the man, the children of Rodney. But Rodney, if the Most High had willed it, would become a nation. Remember, every man did not become a nation. Everyone that came out of the line of Shem did not become a nation. Everyone that came out of the lineage of Abraham did not become a nation. The Most High had certain people, certain men that would become and classified as a nation. Others was just great families, but not nations. Remember that, right? So just because you read all these lineages, and this guy had this son, right? And he had all of these sons and daughters, but it specifies one son because that other son will become a progenitor of a people. Those other sons don't even get named. When you read the lineage, they don't even name the sons or the daughters. You don't know what their names were because they're insignificant to the broader picture, right? Pay attention to how it says that. And you say, yeah, I mean, he had 14 sons, but it names the one son. Well, who is the name of that other son? And people get all at their mind and see, the Bible don't name no sons, but I'm going to go to this other book and it's going to tell me all the other 13 sons. For what? So what? Those sons are insignificant to make the bigger story here. But because sometimes people are so wrapped up in information that really doesn't profit them, like the distance between the earth and the moon, it's such and such many miles away. So what? What is that going to do for you right now? Are you planning on going to the moon? If not, it serves no purpose. Or from the sun here, what purpose does that serve? Nothing. It's just random information just to have. Right? It's unprofitable to a man or a woman for them to get through what they need to get through on this earth, to put things in reason. All right. So let's go back to Acts 7 again. Kind of deviated a bit.
No, that was good.
So Acts 7, I think we left off at 4. I'm going to read 4 again because it kind of touches into what we just read, what I just spoke of. Acts 7 and 4. It says, then came he out of the land of the Chaldeans and dwelt in Charan. And from thence, when his father was dead, he removed him into this land, which is Canaan, which became Israel, wherein ye now dwell. All those high priests, everyone, that's where they was living at. Verse 5, and he gave him none inheritance in it, no, not so much as to set his foot on. So when Abraham went into the land to see Canaan, the Most High promised him the land, but he gave him none inheritance in that land at that time. Reading again, and he gave him none inheritance in it, no, not so much as to set his foot on. Yet he promised that he would give it to him for a possession and to his seed after him, when as yet he had no child. Right? Again, he didn't even have a child to talk about the ones that was going to be people after him to inherit this. This goes again to the Most High's master plan about his nation that was going to come from Abraham's loins, being in a land that was already owned by the Hamites. Canaanites was already dwelling there, right? It says in 6, and God spake on this wise, that his seed should sojourn in a strange land, and that they should bring them into bondage and entreat them evil 400 years, right? So this is what he's speaking about where? In Egypt, right? So he told Abraham, I'm going to give you this land. You ain't going to get nothing right now, but I'm going to give it to you for possession, you and your seed that come after you, right? Abraham's sitting up there thinking, I ain't got no kids. What are you talking about? Remember we were talking about Mary and Joseph? And came, listen, the son is going to be, I don't even know no man. What you talking about? Because it's prophecy. It's before its time. Right now, he's telling him everything that's going to happen in the future before its time. He's laying it out, right? It says that the seed should sojourn in a strange land, and that they should bring them into bondage and entreat them evil 400 years. Go to Genesis 15. Genesis 15. Genesis 15 and 13. Genesis chapter 15, verse 13.
Say 13, 15?
15, 13.
13. And say, hey, what they playing? Hey, for 1 year again. Say, you have to say, who's gonna put it on his man? He wrote a book about me. You say, who's gonna care what about you? Call the Bible.
So this is Genesis 15, 13. It says, and he said unto Abraham, know for of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them. Where is that? Egypt. Right? So even though they were in the land, they were born in the land. How long were they was going to be in the land? 400 years. You got a people that's in that land for 400 years. Guess what? It's not far-fetched that in today's mind, you would think he's Egyptian.
Yeah.
Because he's been in the land for that period of time. Look at us over here in America for how long? Over 400 years. Look at the majority of our people say that we're what? American, African American, right? So it's the same concept when you look at this, verse 14. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, meaning the plagues that the Most High is going to send upon them for not allowing the children of Israel to leave to serve him in the wilderness. And afterwards shall they come out with great substance, meaning the Most High told Israel to spoil the Egyptians, get all the necessities, get all the victuals, get all the gold, get all the garments and materials of the purple of the sea, whatever it is you need, take and then come into the wilderness. And that's what they did. Right? So the Lord now prophesied about Israel going into the land of Egypt and serving them for 400 years, right? Now, go to Galatians, the 3rd chapter. Galatians, the 3rd chapter. Galatians, the 3rd chapter. And Galatians 3 and 16. Galatians 3 and 16. So it reads, it says, now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. He said, not as to seeds as of many, but as of one, and to thy seed, which is Christ. It says, and this I say, that the covenant that was confirmed before of God in Christ, the law, which was 430 years after, cannot disannul that it should make the promise of none effect, right? 430 years after, right? After what? After we went into the land of Egypt, right? Because how long did the Lord say we was going to be in captivity? 400 years. But here it says 430 years. Why does it say 430 years here? Huh? Why does it say 430 years? Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
That's the longest
Galatians 3:17. The reason why it says 430 years, because remember, when did we go into captivity? When did Israel go into captivity in Egypt? What happened? Something happened. It's mentioned in Exodus, the 1st chapter. What else happened? Say again. A different Pharaoh came up, right? So we was already dwelling in the land for a period of time for 30 years until a new Pharaoh came up and got afraid and said, you know what? I'm going to put bondage upon them. And that began the 400 years from whence the new Pharaoh came up, who was second in command already. So the 70 souls came and dwelt there. That generation died off. Joseph and Jacob and the rest of all the brothers died off. They were already dwelling there. Israel was multiplying, and then a new Pharaoh came who didn't respect us the same way as his predecessor, or didn't look to know Joseph. And he said, we're going to go into captivity. Then what happened? We was in captivity for 400 years. So the total time Israel was in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of the 430th year of us being in Egypt in totality, we left Egypt and then went through the Red Sea and went into the wilderness, right? When we went into the wilderness, what happened? The law came. The Most High gave Moses the law to give to Israel while we was in the wilderness. So that's why it says, I'm going to read it again, and this I say, that the covenant, that's the agreement that Israel made with the Most High to keep his law, right? And he will be our God. That the covenant that was confirmed before of God in Christ, the law, which was 430 years after, cannot disannul. You can't break it. That it should make the promise of none effect. Yahweh Kanan.
No, thank you for that. Because I know so the 30 years, and it said 4 years, we're in 430 years. Okay, 30 years that we were before the
right.
Thank you.
Right. So that's the time period when you read in that 1st chapter when it says that Jacob and the 70 souls, well, it was 70 souls that came out of his loins, and they dwelt there. And then it says Joseph died and all his generation died. So after the Jacob and the rest of them came, 30 years went by, they all died off. While they were dying off, the nation was still multiplying and being fruitful. But them of that era died off, right?
They was only there for 30 years
Right,
before they became slaves.
right.
With, right here on verse 6, Exodus 1:6, it says Joseph died, Joseph ate, and it says, now there arose up a new king over Egypt.
Right.
There you go. I got all this highlight for here. And just what they say in verse 6, come let us deal wisely with them. Least they multiply. You're right, you said that. Least they multiply, and it will come to pass that when they fallen out in wars, they join also to our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land.
Right. Exactly. 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 So now let's go back to Acts 7.
All was black, but different types of blacks.
Right.
Colored. Blue, they blue black.
So Acts 7, back to Acts 7 and read 6 and move on. It says, and God spake on this wise, that his seed should sojourn in a strange land, and that they should bring them into bondage and entreat them evil 400 years. And the nation to whom they shall be in bondage will I judge, saith Yahweh. And after that, they shall come forth and serve me in this place, meaning in the wilderness, right? Before they get to the land of Israel, right? So this is going into all that we just read. Verse 8, and he gave him the covenant of circumcision. And so Abraham begat Isaac and circumcised him the 8th day, and Isaac begot Jacob, and Jacob begat the 12 patriarchs, right? So now again, looking at what it's saying here, it's only specifying those who are important. It says Abraham begot Isaac. Abraham begot more than Isaac, Ishmael and those sons of Keturah, but they don't matter as it pertains to the covenant, right? Only Isaac. Then it says, and circumcise him the 8th day. So the law that Most High gave of circumcision was really pertaining to Isaac. But let's read Genesis, the 17th chapter.
I read that before. It's about that, man. That's when the man child came.
Genesis 17 and 9.
Okay. Not 4, okay, 9.
He did.
Okay. Oh, 9. Stop back there.
Very good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. 7, 18, 9. And I will be their God. That's in verse 8.
So this is 17 and 9. It says, and God said unto Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised. Now, the Most High is very specific. He's talking about the seed, singular, after him, right? It says, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your, oh, did I skip? Yeah, I skipped. Verse 10. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised, and ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man child in your generations. He that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And the uncircumcised child whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people, and he have broken my covenant, right? So here it is. The Most High has laid down the covenant or the agreement. Now, let's jump. Oh, you too? You got a question? Okay, come on.
So that means that, like, for example, when we go back into our homeland, the other nations, the male, they have to be circumcised too.
All those that fit what we just read in verse 12 and 13, right? Because like the Most High said, one law shall be for Israel and one's for the stranger. So when they dwell amongst us, they got to follow our rule. If you buy a stranger a servant, they got to be circumcised, right? Because they're following our order, right? That's the law. So now the same thing, if they're living or dwelling amongst us, they're going to follow our dietary laws. We're not going to just say, okay, you could just eat any of those things, like eat swine's flesh, but we can make a distinction. Lawful meat that dieth of itself, you brothers ain't eating it. Give it to them. Think about how we was in slavery, right? When we was in slavery, they had the best of the meat and they gave us the leftovers and the crap, right? They wasn't eating it because they was in rule. They had that right. That was supposed to have been us. So now we got all the hog maws and the chitterlings from the pig, right? We weren't supposed to be eating pigs anyway, but they said, we're going to eat everything else, but we're going to give them the intestines and the for us to eat, right? They gave us the leftovers, the waste, right? You dukes and the rest of you don't eat that. Give it to them slaves and niggas, right? So we are going to have the authority to rule, and it's in the law, in our constitution, that that's how it's going to be, how we deal with the other nations. But we have to abide by a certain code of ethics. They don't abide by a code of ethics. We do, right? So now jump to 17 and 18. Verse 18, correct, right? So at this time, Isaac wasn't born yet, right? And Abraham said unto God, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac, Yakazak, and I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed, singular, after him. Remember, the wording is saying the seed that's going to come from you, Abraham, and then the seed that's going to come from out of your son that's going to come from Sarah. Wasn't meant really for everybody, right? But that's what the Most High stated, right? Now, it had to go for the household. So then you jump down to verse 23. It says, and Abraham took Ishmael, his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the self same day as God had said unto him. And Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. 99. Right? And then it says, and Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Right? But now it started with Abraham and then to the seed. So Isaac was circumcised on the 8th day. And then the seed after Isaac would now have to receive that same covenant, which would have been Jacob. Right? So now, one more. Go to the book of Galatians. I think it's Galatians.
Okay, well, you doing a little small question here.
No, Romans.
Is this
Romans, the 9th chapter.
Is this
Man, I don't
God talking right now, or is this Jesus talking right now in his first 5 books?
both.
Okay, all right. How can you tell the difference?
It's an order. Remember, even when Christ was on the earth, when he spoke the Most High's word, he said, this is not my word, but this is the Most High's word. Then you read in 1 Corinthians, the 10th chapter, it tells you that Israel was baptized of the Most High by Christ, right? Christ was the rock that followed him. Then it tells you when Moses met the Most High in the burning bush, it was an angel of God, right? And that was Yahushua. So all the while all this is being going on, it's the Most High using angels, specifically Yahushua, to bring forth his word.
But when he went up, they got the 10th commandment talking to God.
No, it's Yahushua.
Jesus.
Right. Because it says when Moses first went to see the burning bush, he said it was an angel of God in the bush. Those are the exact words when you read in Exodus. An angel of God in the bush. So you know right off the bat that even though that it's an angel of God, guess what? That angel of God is still a messenger from the Most High, right? It's like if somebody's a diplomat, right? Or an ambassador, better word. If you're an ambassador for your delegation and they send you forth to another country, guess what you're going to do? You bringing forth the message that that person wants to deliver to that people. So when he goes, he says, on behalf of the king, this is what such and such, right? It's not him. Because it's the message that's coming from the authoritative person that's is still in their realm. So he sends that person out to say such and such. He sends this person out to say such and such. Christ sent the 12 out 2 by 2s to do this and to do that. When they went out, it wasn't Peter's word. It wasn't Thomas's word. This was the Most High's word that's coming from Yahushua.
In Exodus 20, the first verse said, and God spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God.
Right.
So that's Jesus of God.
That's Jesus. That's Yahushua.
That's Jesus.
Right.
Okay, verse 5 said, thou shalt not bow down thyself to,
right.
nor serve them, for I, the Lord.
That's Yahushua speaking the Most High's word. Right. He got the word from the Most High to deliver to Moses and the children of Israel.
So this Jesus doing all the talking.
Correct.
Okay.
I'm gonna read this for you. This is Exodus.
Yeah, where you going at though?
I think I'm going to the 3rd chapter.
Exodus?
Yeah.
Exodus,
the 3rd chapter.
Verse 14.
Now, 3 and 1, just to give you context of what I'm talking about, so that you don't get too confused, right? Exodus 3 and 1. And Moses kept the flock of Jethro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian. This is after he fled out of Egypt, right? He now is dwelling in Midian with Jethro and his daughters, and he found a wife, right? It says, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and he came to the mountain of God, even to Horeb. And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame out of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. So now when he goes, he sees the burning bush, but the Most High is now telling you in retrospect that it was what? An angel of the Lord in the fire. Verse 3, I mean. And Moses said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burnt. Here it is, verse 4. And when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see God, God called unto him out of the midst of the bush and said, Moses, Moses. And he said, here am I. He said, draw not nigh hither, put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place whereon thou standest is holy ground. Now, who's saying this? The angel of the Lord is saying this out of the bush. It tells you this. Now, check out what this says. Verse 6. Moreover, he said, I am the God of thy father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. So who's it speaking? The angel of the Lord, Yahushua. But he's speaking as if it's who? The Most High, because he says, I am the God of such and such, but he's speaking on behalf of the Most High, right? So that's why when you're reading things, when you're reading this in Exodus, it's the angel delivering the message of the Most High to the people, right? Same thing. It's like when you read the scriptures and it says, and the Lord said such and such. You read it in Hebrew, it'll say Elohim or Elohia, right? Sometimes it'll say Yahweh. Knowing context of the chapters in the storyline, the Lord will send an angel. And sometimes he's explicit and says the angel went and talked to, who's a guy who had a lot of might on Judges? Samson. The angel appeared to Samson. The angel appeared to Eli when Samuel's parents, the angel appeared to them, right? But spoke as if it was the Most High. But they knew that it was an angel of the Lord. Right. So again, not to take away of the Most High's power. It's just the Lord says he sends angels out to be the messenger for him. So in this case, we know right off the bat with Moses that the angel was sent. Now, not to go too deep, because like I said, we got a lot of verses in Acts, the 7th chapter. When you read further back, even during the time of Abraham, just keep this as a mental note, right? It talks about when Abraham was out with his wife, 3 angels came, right? And they said they came down and sat, and Abraham turned to his wife and said, go fix some food for them. Right. And they came in and sat down and ate with them, right? Now, it was 2 weeks ago that Zaquan did the Sabbath service, and he went into the whole thing when the Most High said, no man can see my face and live. Right. No man, you can't sit and look at the Most High and live to see or behold his glory, right? But now when you read in the Hebrew, it says, and Yahweh came. And you say, oh, that must have been the Most High that's now coming to see Abraham. But how could the Most High come and see Abraham, sit and break bread and eat food and talk with him and live? Right. And no man can see his face. That would make the Most High lie. That would make the scriptures lie. But we know that the Lord has messengers to come on behalf of him. And when you read it in the dialogue, they are saying Most High. They're saying the Lord's name back, because they're now conversing with him. It's like there's a go-between where they ask the angel a question pertaining to the Most High. The angel has already all the answers, because the Most High gave it to him. The Most High knows our thoughts and our minds. So the angel, the messenger, is given certain things. So then when they're going back and forth, the angel already has all the answers to deliver. Let me give you an example. Go to the Apocrypha, 2nd Ezra. See, I knew I was gonna go.
But just before you go there, on that thing with Lot, they actually said that one of those 3 was the Most High. That's what I'm just.
Well, even outside of Lot, before Lot, Abraham, right? Because it says before Lot came in, it was Abraham who sat and then had the meal with him.
Yeah,
but right. So now this is 2nd Ezra, the 4th chapter. But Gabar, make sure you put this as another mental note for an in-depth conversation during the classes, right? Because again, I see it's already almost 2 o'clock, and we on verse 6 or 7 or something like that. Exactly. So this is 2nd Ezra chapter 4, verse 51. So this is 2nd Ezra chapter 4, verse 51, page 18 in the Red Apocrypha. Let me know when everybody got it.
Wait a minute. Oh,
Page 18.
okay, well, good. I was thinking first then. All right. One more. You say 51?
Verse 51. So this is Ezra's talking with the angel Uriel. It says, then I prayed and said, may I live, thinkest thou, until that time? Or what shall happen in those days? So as he's been receiving the prophecies, he's wondering if he's going to be alive in the last days to bear witness to the things that have just been told to him, right? Now check out what the answer is that comes from the angel. Verse 52, he answered me and said, as for the tokens whereof thou askest me, I may tell thee of them in part, but as touching thy life, I am not sent to show thee, for I do not know it. This the angel. The Most High didn't give this angel any information as to what was going to happen to Ezra in his specific life in the future. And that's what he was asking. What's going to happen to me? Am I going to be alive? And the angel is like, some of the things that you're asking about, I can give you that answer, but in part, because I can't give you the fullness of it, because the Most High has given me instruction on what I can and can't say. But on that specific thing pertaining to you, I don't even know it. I can't tell you that. Right? So when the angels do come into earth, they're given information. They're given specific instruction. They can't sway to the left or sway to the right and be like, all right, I'm going to tell you this, but you can't tell nobody. You know how we do, right? You got somebody supposed to give you a secret or information is supposed to be withheld, and you come in like, don't tell nobody I told you this, right? But this such and such and such and such. Nah, the Most High gives you what the Most High gives you, and the angels operate accordingly. All right. So, and that's as far as they go. Like how the angel just told him. He said, I don't even know that. Remember, even Yahushua said, no man knoweth the hour of the day. Not even me. I don't know it. Right. That's how you know the information is coming from the Most High. Right. Because there's certain things that Christ don't know, and he's superior to everybody except for the Most High. Right. So there's limited information or information that he's withheld from knowing. Same thing corresponds to everybody else. All right, so let's go back to Acts. Table some of this. This is all great conversation. Great conversations to just dive into. Acts 7 and 9 now. You're right. I didn't do Romans. Romans 9, and I went to Romans to go into the seed. Right, to highlight the seed, because it talks about the promises, the covenant, the sacrifice or circumcision. All of that was supposed to go to the seed of Abraham. Now let's see what Paul now knows of that whole encounter that just happened when we just read in Genesis 17. Verse 7, Romans 9 and 7. So it says, neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called, singular. Right? So just because Ishmael was a son or a seed of Abraham, did he count in the lot that the Most High was talking about? No, he did not. Even though he got circumcised 13 years old, it wasn't really meant for him. The covenants or agreements weren't meant for him. This was meant for Isaac, as it was stated back in Genesis 17. It says, that is, they which are of the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God, talking about those that came from the concubine Hagar, right? But it says, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed, singular, meaning the one child that came from Sarah, Isaac. He was accounted for the seed of promise. Not anybody, not the son from Keturah, not anyone else, right? Verse 9, for this is the word of promise. At this time will I come, and Sarah shall have a son. And not only this, it didn't stop there, right? It says, but when Rebekah also conceived by one, even by our father Isaac. So the one that is talking about is who? Jacob. Right? He had another brother, Esau, but Esau wasn't accounted for the seed, singular, that the Most High was dealing with. Abraham, his seed, Isaac, Isaac's seed Jacob, and then it became the 12 tribes, the 12 patriarchs. That's the lineage that is being spoken of. So everybody can't be included in this. It's even specified here. Just because they came out of the lineage of Abraham, everybody can. Matter of fact, think on a higher level. Abraham is one of the sons that comes out of the line of Shem, right? The Shemites. Abraham comes out of Shem. What about Ham and Japheth? They don't come out of Abraham. They don't even come out of Abraham. So what's going to happen with them? They don't even factor in this, right? We just thinking about Abraham and all the nations that come out of Abraham. But you got people that's in the earth now that don't come out of Abraham's lineage. They don't even come out of his ancestry. They're not included in this, right? That's kind of what this is going into. Paul is aligning all of this up, right? So that's when he goes into the seed pertaining to Jacob. And then it seems to be that this is not right. Is this some unrighteousness with the Most High? Why would he eliminate and just alienate everybody else? Because it's the Most High.
Hey, don't turn the page. Read verse 13.
As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. So that goes into showing the Most High's chosen seed, the one that the Lord was going to deal with.
9:13.
Right. Esau didn't factor into his Abraham's promise.
Romans 9:13.
Esau does not factor into Abraham's promise. Right? Does not factor. Not only Esau, but everybody else does not factor. And it kind of highlights that by stating that in this whole description. Esau I hated, so he couldn't be a part of the seed. He can't be accounted for this. And that's Jacob's brother. Take it there, exactly.
Like you got family members, I can't stand this person here.
Right.
And we cousins, family. And that's the day, for real. I know everybody, I ain't gonna say everybody.
Even if an Israelite going baptize Esau.
No, yeah, right.
Gun.
I don't know why you doing that. They don't drown us for nothing. Okay.
All right. So let's go back by Acts 7. And we at 9 now. Actually, 8. 8. 8. Because I got it ties in. So Acts 7 and 8, it says, and he gave him the covenant of circumcision, which we just read about in Genesis 17. And so Abraham begat Isaac, eliminates Ishmael and any other sons, and circumcised him the 8th day. And Isaac begat Jacob, not including Esau, but this is the seed that the Lord was dealing with. And Jacob begat the 12 patriarchs, right? The 12 sons that came out of him, which will become the 12 tribes. Verse 9, and the patriarchs, moved with envy, sold Joseph into Egypt, but God was with him, right? So now it gets into the storyline of when the rest of the patriarchs outside of Joseph got envious with him. Why? Why did they sell their brother Joseph?
His father loved him. He gave him a coat there.
Yeah, they got jealous of him. Yeah, they got that. I would say he doesn't agree with us, but daddy kept giving him stuff. The child was young, right? And the brothers got jealous, and they put him in a hole. And he also had that dream telling his brothers, right? He was king over them. Right, they appreciate that. That really made him upset.
Right.
Yeah. I seen that on the movie here one day. Oh yeah. Yeah, they showed it. I watched it. But what you were just talking about last week when y'all went out about Shem, the guy who I was watching, y'all had came back. That's what he was talking about.
Oh yeah.
He said he didn't care nothing about the other ones, just them.
Right.
And he, skin and all that stuff, because he was told to by angels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I won't go backwards. But yeah.
So you read this hatred that they had toward Joseph in Genesis 37. Genesis 37. And I'm gonna read from 2.
37 too?
Yep.
Yeah,
this is Genesis 37 and 2. It says, these are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was with the sons of Bala and with the sons of Zipha. his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. So anytime they did any sin or iniquity, he would let his father know, Daddy, he was out there doing such and such. Just want to let you know, right? And then like, man, you always got to be telling on somebody, right? So they got a little, you know, that they fell away on that one. Then it says in verse 3, now Israel or Jacob loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. So he showed favor unto the baby boy, right? Right? He had him when he was in his old age. So, you know, usually the baby always shows favor, but this is even more because he was in his old age. So now you got two things going on. You got, on one hand, he ratting on everybody when they do their sin. And then the other, you seeing that daddy's showing him favor. Right. You kind of like, yo, man, he always letting him, giving him things. He don't get nothing to us. Right? And then what happens? They see him give him this special coat of many colors. Verse 4, and when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. So they alienated a young brother. They didn't ever speak any good things to him. Anytime he came around, it was as if they said, let me get out of here. What you doing? You need to go back home. What you got some feeding the flock? Go deal with that. No, I want to come with y'all. Nah, get out of here. Right? They're always showing them they're not speaking any good, comfortable, peaceable words into him. And then you read from verse 5 all the way down when he goes into the dream. Yeah, dream. Right? And and in the dream, it kind of highlighted that same spirit that they had towards him of envy and hate. And then it was even took it further to his mother and his father. Right? You go into that. So because of this, they hated him so much that they did what? They sold him to the Ishmaelites, right? They said, "Listen, we're gonna get him out of here. We're gonna make it as if he dead, so that if he out the way, if he not here no more, then he can't be getting that, showing that favor. Then maybe Daddy will give it to us. Maybe Daddy will show us that favor, right? That's what happens when it comes with envy. With envy, you see what somebody else got and how they may be well favored or how they may have certain things, and you wish it to be for you." Right? That's what happened with Yahushua. The Pharisees and Sadducees saw Yahushua had multitudes following him, and they envied him to the point they hated him. They said, we gotta be good, we gotta get out of here. Because if we don't remove him, our place in space is gonna be gone. We don't have nothing to do because everybody gonna follow after him. We want that attention. That's what they wanted. The Pharisees, they wanted that attention, that love, and that admiration that Yahushua was gaining in righteousness. Joseph's brothers wanted that love from their father that was given to Joseph, giving them coats of many color and showing them favor. They wanted that. So the best way to do it, like how they did Yahushua, listen, we got to get him out of the way. They initially set up first to actually kill him. Yeah. They wanted to murder him. Not even, they wanted to murder their brother Joseph, right? Over favor. Right? Consider this. This when we look at, you know, our ancestry, or when you look at some of the patriarchs, Abraham was Abraham, right? You know, you don't read much negative things or at all about Abraham. Not to say that Abraham didn't do it, but you don't read much of that. When you look at just the 11 brothers, and the 11 brothers are conspiring to kill their younger baby brother, right?
What was the 10 brothers? The 11 one point.
Yeah, right, exactly. So you send the 10 brothers who are now sitting here saying that they want to kill their baby brother because of the love that's being shown him. In today's time, we say, oh, that's some Edomite stuff, man. Esau does stuff like that. But it's happened with our Hebrews, right? This has happened with our brothers in the past, our ancestry in the past. But some of them were wise enough to say, nah, we're not going to kill him, man. That's just too much. We can't do that. It's like it'd be too heavy in my heart that we went and did that. So they threw him in a ditch and they conspired and said, we're going to sell him. So that's what happened to Joseph, right? So now going back to Acts 7. So now it says in Acts 7 and 9, and the patriarchs moved with envy, sold Joseph into Egypt, but God was with him, meaning the Most High allowed him to prosper even while he was being a captive or a slave in Egypt, to the point that he rose up and was second in command over all the possessions and affairs of the Egyptians under Pharaoh, right? and it was messed up. Pharaoh's wife, you know, tried to jam him up, right? She came up in there, lay with me.
Yeah.
Said, listen, listen, you know, I'm over all your husband's affairs. Oh, am I gonna come and do something like this? But she's like, nah, come from precedent. If you won't do this, I'm gonna say that you raped them.
No, women like that.
Yeah, right.
On top of it, it's righteousness over integrity, righteousness over immorality. And he's the man of the Most High.
Right.
It's a hard thing to walk away from, but you have to weigh things in the balance to see what's more important.
All right.
You went to prison for that.
Yeah. She got knocked up. Like, you can't commit adultery.
Right.
So he did it all.
Verse 10, because it could have been accepted in their culture, right? It wouldn't have been you know, like in the Roman and Greek culture, that's what they do, right? So you can't that whole when in Rome, be as the Romans, nah, it don't operate that way, right?
And wicked Jake will be like, yo, he's a bad boy. Bad boy in a way.
In a good way.
In a good way.
Yeah. Verse 10, and delivered him out of all his afflictions and gave him favor and wisdom in the sight of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and made him governor over Egypt and all his house, right? So you can write down Psalms 34:19 to go with this verse 10. And then also Genesis 39. This goes to verse 10. Genesis 39, 2-6, 34:19. So I'll read Genesis 39 and 2. Try to read this quick. It says, and the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer over his house and all that he had put into his hand. And it came to pass from the time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored, right? And I'll read Psalm 34 and 19. Psalms 34:19 says, many are the afflictions of the righteous, but the Lord delivereth him out of them all, right? So when you could be jammed up in a sticky situation, especially when it's not of any wickedness that you've done, but you still being put in a precarious situation, whether it be in prison or, you know, someone is out to get you, to kill you, or what have you. But the Most High, if you're like Pequod said, if your integrity and your morals align up with the Most High,
You're all right.
you'll be delivered. Most High deliver you. And most importantly, you got to believe that, right? You got to believe that. That's where faith comes in, right? So now go back to Acts 7 and 11.
Before you the very story that we read was Stephen, who was in line with the Most High.
All right.
He was delivered up. He was sacrificed, right?
Oh, he was murdered?
Right.
He was murdered, right.
Right. So how does that fit what happened to him? How does that fit?
Well, if you look at everybody, right, Yahushua
Right.
was righteous and he died, right? He was sacrificed too, right? It's not to say, because this goes into what Pequod kind of was speaking about in the past two camps, as far as for people fear death, right? Death is just a transitional state, right? Righteousness is righteousness, right? So when you are doing righteousness and you do a good deed, let's just say you're doing a good deed today, and then the Most High bless you 2 weeks from now for the good deed that you did either today or the good deed that you did 3 years ago. Now the Most High has allowed time and space to happen, and boom, all of a sudden you show him favor. And you're like, yo, this is, Barakatah Yahweh Yahweh Shah, right? I got this blessing, right? Now, you continue to fight for righteousness up until your death, right? Up until the time you die. You never wavered from righteousness.
Right.
And you die, like what we're about to read with Stephen or Yahweh Shah or any of the apostles, because the majority of all the apostles, outside of a couple, died, but died some gruesome deaths, right? Because of righteousness. But the reward, the blessing, the gift that you're going to receive for doing that righteousness is going to supersede even what that transitional state is, right? We fear the physical aspect of death. Man fears the physical aspect of death because it's been glamorized and it's been oversaturated. I remember they used to have a show when I was growing up. It was called The Faces of Death or something like that. They used to have these videos. Remember those?
Yeah. Oh.
They used to have those videos and it showed people dying gruesome deaths, right? They saw somebody getting shot in the head and you see the head and you're watching it. Or somebody fall from the building and you see them splat, you watch, you like, dang, right? So that image and that effect is in your brain. It's in your mind. And you are afraid of that, right? That becomes your fear. I don't want that to happen to me. I don't want to feel what death feels like, right? So then when a situation comes up where you now have to stand on righteousness, your decision making is going to be either I stand on righteousness and then there may be an opportunity that I may die from it, or I can go and just give in to the sin and the iniquity and continue to live, right? That's what happens. So now when you see these individuals here, like the story in the Maccabees, like what we're about to read with Stephen, these are people who didn't fear death, right? Death was just that transitional state to say, hey, guess what? The Most High is still going to reward me. When I come back, I'm going to be rewarded better than me being rewarded after me suffering for this moment in time than me now getting a temporary freedom or a temporary time to continue on, to continue doing this wickedness. And then when Yahweh shall come back, I'll be raised to condemnation, right? I am condemned by Christ and the Most High, right? My name is going to be stained as one that while we had that space, I didn't do the right thing like the rest of the 144,000 those men, right? So that's why all this conditioning that we read in the scriptures is to prepare your mind for that. That's why that story is the way it is in Maccabees, where the mother knew what the time was. Her sons knew what the time was. They said, yeah, you're going to kill us now, but don't worry, we're going to come back and the Most High going to judge you when that time comes. You don't have people thinking like that today because we just think for today. We just think for the now. We don't think for the regeneration. We don't think for the reward. So when Stephen goes through what he goes through, or Peter went through what he went through, or Paul went through what he went through, they said, listen, we already knew that this was going to happen. Remember, we sat in the Sabbath service, Yahweh Shah told Peter how he was going to die, right? And he felt the way like, damn, I'm going to die like this. What about John? Is John going to die like this? Right? So,
yeah, there's a difference between those that think they're going to have a virgin when they die. They're not afraid of death because in their mind, they feel.
You broke up. You stopped after in their minds. What'd you say in their minds? What was that?
They feel that they're going to have a virgin when they die. They've been acclimated to believe that wonderful things are going to happen to them. That's why they will go down with the plane, or they'll burn up in a building, or they'll be, they'll be able to be killed by an explosive, because they have these wonderful things that they're trained to believe.
Right. So
that are going to be wonderful things that are going to happen to them when they die.
Right. So in the same vein as what Muslims or people who are in the Islam who have been prepared for the afterlife, their righteousness is not the righteousness of Israel or the Most High. Right. They do these things for man's will. Right. Because they're not following it according to righteousness. They do these things because someone has ordered them or said, if you go and blow this up or blow those people up, then you will get, like the sister says, so many different virgins in the afterlife. You get 7 virgins in the afterlife. You're like, oh, 7 virgins? Oh, this is going to be great. They'll go and do something like that, right? Whereas for us, when we just fight for righteousness unto the death, it's not that I'm looking to get 7 virgins or 70 virgins, or I'm looking to get 80 mansions or what have you. The main focus for us is to receive that crown, to find that we were worthy from the Most High in Christ. That's the first thing, or that should be your first thought, that I'm going to be found worthy, that I did my best, and whatever it is the Most High Yahweh Shah want to give me while in the kingdom, I'm fine with that, long as I make it. That's why you'll hear brothers say, if I could just be a doorman in the kingdom, I'm fine with that. Long as I'm in the kingdom, long as I got a name that I made it, I'm good with that. I got no problem. I ain't gonna fight you to say, oh, you the one that's in the cook in the kitchen, or this person is walking, he's a armed soldier in the arm. I ain't fighting you on that. I'm gonna take my position gladly, whatever it is. That's our mind state. But carnally, sister's right. You got people who think that way. Esau and them don't, though. Esau and them do not, right? That's why when you paid attention to the beginnings of the war, they always had that rhetoric that says, how can you fight against somebody who's not afraid to die when we are afraid to die, right? It's very difficult to go fight against somebody who got nothing to lose. And you got everything to lose, because in your mind, you getting on that plane, all you want to do is come back home. I want to come back home. Where you're going to fight against somebody who's not expecting to come back home. How do you fight that, right? So that's their perspective on war. Ours is more spiritual. Ours is not physical, because we understand the plane on how the Most High is dealing and testing with us in today's realm. Be quiet.
And one scripture I have on that, right? It's Romans chapter 8, verse 2. Romans chapter 8, verse 2.
Romans chapter 8, verse 2.
I'll read it real fast. Romans chapter 8, verse 2 read, for the law of the spirit of life in Christ Yahushua has made me free from the law of sin and death, right? Deep down, the reason why everybody afraid to die is because deep down in our spirit, we know we're not supposed to die. We're supposed to be on this earth forever, because this earth was given to man. But because of the sin of Adam, death entered into this world. Right? Deep down in our spirit, we feel like we should be living forever, because this earth is given to man to live. So that's where, when you find a life in Christ, you're no longer afraid of death, because even when you go physically, right, in Christ, you're gonna come back to this earth again and live forever. So that's why most people they felt like they don't want to, they scared to die, even in their wickedness, they don't want to die. Right? They do all kinds of stuff not to die. It's because deep down in our spirit, we know this earth was given to men. And you can read Psalm 115 and 16. It tells you that the heavens belong to the Most High and the earth belongs to men.
Gun. All right, let's go back. Acts 7 and 11. It says, now there came a dearth over all the land of Egypt and Canaan, and great affliction, and our fathers found no sustenance. But when Jacob heard that there was corn in Egypt, he sent out his fathers first, or our fathers first, meaning the patriarchs, right? He sent them to go to Egypt to go and see if they would allow them to go and get food, to get sustenance. Verse 13, and at the second time, Joseph was made known to his brethren, and Joseph's kindred was made known unto Pharaoh, meaning Joseph recognized them, but they didn't recognize Joseph. Why?
He ain't grew up.
Wait
a minute, he was dressed.
He looked like the Egyptians. He grew up, but he also had the attire on of the Egyptians, right? Now, with that, this is also good to just use for historical references, because when you go into Egypt history, and now proving who the real children of Israel are, you can use their own murals that they have up that were in the tombs of their pharaohs, because there are certain pharaohs who had the drawings of the Egyptians and the children of Israel. And they show that the children of Israel had dark skin, right? They were dark-skinned people that were in slavery under them. So this was when the archaeologists went and dug it up. They went and found this inside of their pyramids, inside of their tombs, and they took pictures of the walls that was now lasting for thousands of years. So now when you want to get a good reference of, well, what did they really look like? Well, they drew who they had in slavery, right? That's one of the signs I want to put, so that when we go into this, what does the real people look like? And this is what they look like in ancient times. They look like the same people in today's times, right? How did they change to what you guys say they are, right? History and archaeology is speaking to us now, right? So here, when Joseph came to Egypt, he then, like Moses, put on the attire of the Egyptians, to the point where when people saw him, they saw that what? He was an Egyptian.
Yeah.
When Pharaoh now put him up as second in command, he was going to put on Egyptian attire. He was learned in the Egyptian culture, wise in it, because he was over all their affairs. So when they came, they saw him, and so they just thought him was another Egyptian. Right. Especially somebody you haven't seen for a while. But he can't be my baby brother, right? With that, nah, it can't be him.
As a matter of fact, I see that all the time from traveling here, right, and go back home. You'll find people they left as they were kids. When they go back, you can't even recognize them.
And then when they kicked Moses out of the place, they found out he was a Hebrew.
Right.
They gave him a Hebrew coat. Well, not a coat, what y'all call it? That red and black.
They didn't know who Moses was, right?
Right.
We declared who he was. Only
Right.
person knew was
His mother. His stepmother and his
She
mother.
knew he was an Egyptian boy, but
Hebrew.
I don't think Pharaoh knew he was Egyptian.
Yeah, she knew.
You mean Hebrew?
Got him out of that basket.
You mean Hebrew?
Hebrew.
Yeah.
When you was talking about when you was just comparing us to the Jews of the day, you wasn't comparing us to the Egyptians, right?
When
you was trying to contrast about what
right,
these slaves look like,
right, using them.
because they was the same color as we are.
Exactly.
The same color.
Exactly, because now when you read the story, like when Moses left, right, they said this Egyptian came and helped us, right? Because they're not looking at him being a Hebrew slave. They just seeing him for what he has on and whatever his feet. Because he looks the same complexion as Egyptians. So when the clothes that he had on, you would just right off the bat assume that he was an Egyptian. When Moses left Egypt, because he feared that they was going to kill him, because he went and saw his two brothers striving and fighting.
Right.
And then they said, what? Actually, we're going to read it when we get there.
No, there's two brothers.
Two Hebrew brothers.
Yeah. And the guard,
two Hebrew brothers.
And he killed the guard.
No,
right?
That was two different.
It was two different times. That's why I said we're going to get to it in a minute.
Okay, that's going to say that.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, excuse me. When he got to that well and the girls was getting water, and the girl told the man, my father's name is on this well right here. And he seen that them guys was, both guarding the girls.
No, that was something else. That was two stories.
That was Moses. But I'm just talking about when he had that jacket on, that coat he had on, the girl said he's a Hebrew.
When he beat the shepherds up for the girl.
Yeah.
They identified.
Because the girl sees the Hebrew.
So they identified them as
An Egyptian.
Right.
Wait a minute, no. When he beat them guys at the well,
They said that Egyptian God delivered us.
Right. Exactly. Somebody find it for him so we can read it so he can just
we get it later.
Yeah. All right, so now reading on Acts 7 and where we at? We at verse 14.
Yeah.
It says, then sent Joseph and called his father Jacob to him and all his kindred, 75 souls. So Jacob went down into Egypt and died, he and our fathers, right? Yeah. So that's what we was reading in Exodus, the first chapter, that they died there, right?
Right.
It says, and were carried over into Shechem and laid in the sepulchre that Abraham brought for a sum of money of the sons of Emor, the father of Shechem. So you can write this down in Genesis 49:33 as a precept. 49 and 33.
What verse that was 9 or 16?
Right, when he died, when Jacob died, Genesis 49 and 33, which reads and says, and when Jacob had made an end of commanding his son, this is when he was breaking down the prophecies pertaining to the 12 tribes, right? The men, the sons, 49th chapter, right? It says, when he had made an end of commanding his sons, he gathered up his feet into the bed and yielded up the ghost and was gathered unto his people. So it's like he was there talking, and then after he finished, he get in the bed, put his feet up in the bed, and when he laid down, that was it. He never got back up from when he laid down that bed. Right? So then I also mentioned chapter 50.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Genesis 50. And I'm gonna read verse 13. Genesis 50 and 13. It says, for his sons carried him into the land of Canaan and buried him in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham bought with the field of for a possession of a burying place of Ephron the Hittite before Mamre, right? So it's like today, you know how sometimes when people go and they say, hey, I'm going to buy a plot at the cemetery. So, you know, when we die, that's where our family is going to be buried at, right? Abraham went and bought this plot. They in Egypt, but they knew that that was going to be the burying place. So they left from Egypt to go take Jacob back and bury him in the land of Canaan, right? So that's where he was buried. So that's what we're reading here, right? So back in Acts 7
17
and 17 now.
Joseph bones. We took Joseph.
Right.
Who they took from out of Egypt? David.
That's what he's just talking about, Joseph.
Okay.
Because Joseph died there and he was embalmed. Like that was the custom of the Egyptians.
You
know,
take the inside of the
yeah, like how they put the embalming fluid in you and mummify you and all that. That's what happened with Joseph, and he was deaf there. And then when we left out, I think I don't know what point we came back and took his bones and buried him somewhere else. I don't know. You got to find that. Can't remember off the top of my head.
When the whole nation left.
You're right.
Everybody-
Say again.
When the whole nation left.
At the end of Joshua, the water. Yeah, Kun. It says it at the end of Joshua. Let me get that real quick. The water, Nabian.
Joseph was like a mommy. A mummy. It was like a mummy.
Right, Joshua chapter 24. Joshua chapter 24, verse 32. So this is now after we come into the land, conquered the Hamites, and started dividing up the land at different lots to the different 12 tribes. It says, and the bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought up out of Egypt, buried they in Shechem, in a parcel of ground which Jacob bought of the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver. And it became the inheritance of the children of Joseph, right? So Ephraim and Manasseh, that became their inheritance in that area of land. That's Joseph's sons. Joshua 24 and 32. The water Nabiya. So now back in Acts 7 and 18. Salak 17. It says, but when the time of the promise drew nigh, and God has sworn to Abraham, the people grew and multiplied in Egypt, till another king arose, which knew not Joseph. The same dealt subtly with our kindred, and evil entreated our fathers, so that they cast out their young children to the end that they might not live. Right? You read that in Exodus 1:22. Right? It says, in which time Moses was born. Right? They sent out to kill all the male children, firstborn. And at that time, Moses was taken and set up down the river, right? It says, in which time Moses was born and was exceeding fair and nourished up in his father's house 3 months. So at the time when this declaration came out, he was 3 months old, right? And when he was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter took him up and nourished him for her own son. So her handmaid was in the river, saw him, brought the baby in, and then she took him in. Now, adding one clarification in it, go to Exodus chapter 2, because it says that she took him in and nourished him for her own son, right? Exodus chapter 2 and verse 6. I'm going to start at 5, actually. Exodus 2 and 5. It says, and the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the flags, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrews' children. Verse 7, then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, shall I go and call to thee a nurse of the Hebrew women, that she may nurse the child for thee? Verse 8, and Pharaoh's daughter said to her, go. And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give thee thy wages. And the woman took the child and nursed it. Verse 10, and the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moses, and she said, because I drew him out of the water. So it wasn't just the fact of the baby was in the river, they found the baby and they kept the baby. No, they knew that this was a Hebrew child, and Pharaoh's daughter couldn't nurse the child. So they went and called his mother and said, listen, bring him up. Right. And one would say, but why would she give him up? Because remember, they already had this declaration that they was going to kill all the firstborn. Yeah. Right. So she said, OK, I'm going to nurse him. She was under the protection of him. And then after that was done, she sent him to go live with Pharaoh's daughter. Because if that agreement would have been broken, that's still her firstborn. He got to be killed. Right. So, no, they allowed that to happen. If anyone's thinking, well, Dag, if they brought your baby back, how could you let your baby go? Because they don't want their baby to die. Remember Solomon, when the two women had sons, and one turned over and slept and killed the one baby, and then it was arguing saying, no, that's my baby. She said, no, that's my baby. Solomon said, all right, I got a thing. We're going to divide them in half. The real mother said, no, let her keep him. Solomon knew that the real mother would never want her child to die like that. So he said, listen, take her and give him to her. She the real mother, right? So Moses' mother didn't want her to die, so she gave him back. And he was raised up as an Egyptian in that house. So now back to Acts 7. Acts 7 and 21. It says, and when he was cast out, Pharaoh's daughter took him up and nourished him for her own son. 22. And Moses was learned in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and was mighty in words and in deeds, right? So they'll say, see, Moses, he got civilized from Egypt. He got wise when he was in Egypt. But come on now. Egypt was the ruling empire at that time. He was learned in all of the different things that the Egyptians had going on, right? So now when Moses becomes Moses, they're saying he only became Moses, or Israel only became that way because they got it from Moses. This is when you start getting people having these different debates and saying, like the Muslim brother came up and was like, but don't you find it ironic that like we got like these, how many laws, 6 laws or 40 something laws. And they kind of almost similar to the laws that, the children of Israel got. So, you know, isn't there like some plagiarism that's going on here that really it all started with Egypt? And then you say, well, how many laws are you talking about? Because we don't just have 40 something laws. We got about over 600. So now where are these other 500 and something laws in this culture that breaks down all of these morality laws, that breaks down these dietary laws, that breaks down these ceremonial laws? Where are they there? For it to be that perfect of a law system, how do you correlate? And they say, oh, well, you know, I didn't know that. Yeah. Y'all just thinking of 10 commandments, like how the Christianity does. They just highlight 10 commandments. They don't highlight any of the other commandments to give it a broader scope. But this is kind of where this starts from, because it says that Moses was learned, or he was taught. He got his education from the Egyptians. See? It's Egyptology, brother. It's Egyptology here. That's what they come, right? It says, in all the wisdom of the Egyptians, and was mighty in words and in deeds. And when he was full 40 years old, it came into his heart to visit his brethren, the children of Israel. And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended him and avenged him that was oppressed, and smote the Egyptian.
That's when he killed, right?
It's kind of like when they said, teach your child the way to go, and he will never depart from it. Moses was already get the foundation where it's supposed to get from his mother, right? And Hebrew woman,
right?
Even though in Egyptian, he already done learn the foundation, the basics. That
he was of the Hebrews growing up in Egypt, right? You see that sometimes today where parents or a mother will give their child up to have a better life, to go live with another people, because they can't provide for him or her the best way that they can. They probably on hard times or poor times, and they go live with some people who is affluent, who got money or got more opportunities and things to give them. So do that. But the child still knows that he's coming from this, you know, background. He's coming from this area. He's just living over here, right? Sometimes they know, sometimes they don't, depending on what age they're being given up, right? What age they're being given up. But you have that happen even in today's time.
I was even thinking about how, but the conflict between, you know, Moses and Miriam and Aaron. I was thinking about like Miriam was older than Moses.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she was be older.
Yep.
All of them was older than him, wasn't it?
Aaron and Moses. Aaron and Miriam, yeah.
Oh, both of them are older.
Mm-hmm.
What put the girl found him in the water? That was his sister. Name, who was her name?
Oh,
Was that Miriam?
Huh?
Remember Moses in the basket?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so that, you know, that civil rivalry.
And plus when he found out he was a Hebrew, because he had that cloth, they killed the maid from 2 holes to house.
Stop. That's just the movie.
Because he's about to go tell.
That was the
Right. What did he say?
He's talking about the movie.
That was
What?
Oh, hush, man. He told him about the movie. But yeah, she threw him off the balcony. But she was going to tell. She told her mother who got him out the water.
That's the movie.
Oh yeah, that's a movie. That's not scripture.
No.
That's not scripture.
That ain't movie.
That is movie. That's not scripture.
My bad. Hey, I'm sorry.
So
All right.
what verse are we in now?
We have verse 24.
25.
Yeah,
You read that. You
60.
Right. And seeing one of them suffer wrong, he defended him and avenged him that was oppressed, and smote the Egyptian. For he supposed his brethren would have understood how that God by his hand would deliver them, but they understood not. So he thought that they would get and understand why he was helping them out. But they saw him as an Egyptian, right? So they didn't really get, you know, his whole disposition. They didn't know that he was really for them like that. Right. But it was in his heart that he was for his brother. It was in his heart that he was for his people. But sometimes you don't know, and they didn't get it.
I mean, he was in a high position too.
Right. And he was like, you know,
Yeah,
because he was raised under as Pharaoh's daughter's son.
Yeah.
So, you know, he was really up there and wise in everything pertaining to the Egyptian empire, right?
Yeah. I mean, there were common workers, common people, and he was like high up, saying, "Hey, you really don't care for us down here." You know,
right.
They're riding down here, we're in the pit, and so on and so forth. We're working in the field and all that stuff. Like you're up there, you know.
Right. But then he killed this guy for the brother.
Right.
Right. So that's the part that he put himself out there for the brother, that how he would understand that, listen, the Most High is still, you know, kind of showing favor here a little, even though you're slaves, I still know that you're my people, right? So that's kind of where the movie kind of tries to play on certain aspects of it. But the movie really doesn't touch on it, because in the movie, he don't know that he Hebrew until the woman come with the cloth. Right, and then she's his Pharaoh's daughter trying to hide it and everything else. But it was like, nah, that wasn't the case. This happened. He already knew who he was. Yeah, he knew who he was. Verse 26. And the next day he showed himself unto them as they strove, them being the two Hebrews, and would have set them at one again, saying, Sirs, ye are brethren. Why do you wrong one to another? Like, hold on, stop. And before it was the Egyptian doing something wrong to the brother. He didn't care about the Egyptian, and he smoked and killed the Egyptian and tried to have the talk with the brother. Didn't get it. The next day come, now you got two brothers. He like, stop. He ain't going to smite either one. He's going to try to reason. Listen, y'all brothers, why y'all going at each other like this? Right? Verse 27. But he that did his neighbor wrong thrust him away, saying, who made thee a ruler and a judge over us? So the one that was caught in the wrong, get off me, man. Who was you? Who was you to judge me? Right? Then he says, wilt thou kill me as thou didst the Egyptian yesterday? Right? So he saw it, and he's like, who made you the ruler or judge over me? Are you going to kill me like you did that guy that yesterday? I know who you are. Right? So now when that happened, and this is his brother that's talking, Moses now gets fearful. Right? It says, then fled Moses at this saying, and was a stranger in the land of Midian, where he begat two sons. Right? Because he thought, if this brother, who's his own brother, is saying this to him, then what else now are other people saying? And if this gets to the Pharaoh, that he went and killed an Egyptian, that his life now will be at stake. He'd have to answer for this. So he said, you know what? I'm just going to bounce. I'm out of here, man. I'm out of here. I'm going to exile myself and flee over here to this land and live another life, right?
Yeah, quiet life.
I'll live a quiet life, right? He left, met the daughters, right, of Jethro, and they said, hey, this Egyptian done saved us and did all this, that, and then they went, time went on, and he had two sons, right? So now, remember, this is Stephen being questioned about prophesying about Yahushua, right? So Stephen is taking the long way to bring him up to today, or at that point, but he's doing it because it all ties together. Because these men, these Libertines, these Cyrenians, these Alexandrians, and all these other people thought they knew scripture or thought they knew history, but they don't. That's why he was sharp in the word. So he's going through this whole path to bring them up to a certain point so that he can be justified in what he is saying and what he's preaching pertaining to Yahushua, right? So he's starting beyond to bring them up. So now, back in verse 30. So he was 40 years old when he left Egypt. And it says, and when 40 years were expired, so now he's 80 years old, there appeared to him in the wilderness of Mount Sinai an angel of the Lord in a flame of fire in a bush, which we just read in Exodus, the 3rd chapter and the 2nd verse on down. When Moses saw it, he wondered at the sight. And as he drew near to behold it, the voice of the Lord came unto him, saying, I am the God of thy fathers, the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Then Moses trembled and durst not behold, meaning he durst not look, right? He didn't want to go and step forward. But then verse 33, then said the Lord to him, put off thy shoes from thy feet, for the place where thou standest is holy ground. I have seen the affliction of my people, which is in Egypt, and I have heard their groaning, and am come down to deliver them. And now come, and I will send thee into Egypt. This Moses, whom they refused, saying, who made thee a ruler and a judge? The same did God send to be a ruler and a deliverer by the hand of the angel which appeared to him in a bush, right? Which is Yahushua when you read in 1 Corinthians 10. So now, here it is, Moses. First off, he was well known, famous in Egypt. Went and defended his brothers, and now he thought his reputation was small. Who made you? And now he's speaking of one of his own who was a slave.
Right.
Who made you a ruler over me? They don't even want him or look to him to being a guide or someone who can help defend them. Now the Most High is saying, I need you to go back there and be a ruler and a defender over your people. So now he's going to look at this as a tall task. Like, Most High, I don't think you know. They don't like me real well over there right now. My name is, I'm on the news. My name ain't real good amongst my own, right? So it says in 36, and he brought them out. After that, he showed wonders and signs in the land of Egypt and in the Red Sea and in the wilderness 40 years, right? So now here it is. It jumps and says, Most High went, used Moses. Moses delivered them out, came through the plagues, and now they went and dwelt in the wilderness. And they're in the wilderness for what? Another 40 years.
So he 120.
Yeah, 120. So he was 40 when he left Egypt. He was 40 when he dwelt in Midian, and then the Most High appeared to him and then delivered the children of Israel out, and he will dwelt 40 years in the wilderness prior to them going into the land of Canaan, right? So now it says, verse 37, now Stephen gets into the meat of the problem. Because remember, all these men, they knew about the history. They know about Abraham. They know about Moses. But sometimes they forget. Sometimes they didn't see the clear picture. Certain things can be said and you not realize what it's really talking about. Stephen is about to now expound upon Yahushua in the midst of all of that went on back then. Verse 37, this is that Moses which said unto the children of Israel, a prophet shall the Lord your God raise up unto you out of your brethren, like unto me, him shall ye hear. So this is what Moses told the children of Israel in the wilderness. When you read in Deuteronomy, the 18th chapter, right? This is what he's highlighting. This is what they probably forgot, that this person had to come into the earth. Deuteronomy 18. And I'm going to read from 18. So Deuteronomy 18:18, it says, I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. So he's telling the children of Israel that this great prophet is going to come from among his brethren. And it tells you in the New Testament that it behooved him to be made or born like his brethren, right? But this one, I'm going to put my words in his mouth, right? And command him everything that I want him to say. Then it says in verse 19, and it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. Meaning, if that man comes at that appointed time and he speaks all my words in righteousness, in fullness, and the people don't receive it, they're going to be judged for that. I'm going to hold them to that. Every idle word that you speak, I'm going to take account and hold you to that. So this is what now Stephen is bringing up, because remember, they're accusing Stephen of blasphemous words, which Stephen is speaking the same words that Yahushua spoke. Right? So now if Stephen is speaking blasphemous words, and the words is the same that Yahushua spoke, and the words that Yahushua spoke is the word that the Most High spoke and gave, they're now not against Stephen in reality. They're against the Most High. Because the words didn't come from Yahushua. The words didn't come from Stephen. The word came from the Most High. That's what is being said here. Right? So now, go back to Acts 7 and 38. It says, this is he that was in the church in the wilderness with an angel which spake to him in the Mount Sinai, and with our fathers, who received the lively oracles to give unto us. Speaking about Moses getting the oracles of the Most High from the angel while in the wilderness. And the wilderness, the people was called the what? A church. Another good verse to use, that the church is not a building. The church is the congregation, the people, the gathering. Wherever you at, in here, this is a church. Out there, it's a church. By the beach, it's a church. In the desert, it's a church, right? It says in verse 39, to whom our fathers would not obey, but thrust him from them, and in their hearts turned back again into Egypt. So now when Moses came with the oracles, they was complaining and murmuring. Man, we had it better when we was in Egypt. Why don't we just go back there? They had all good kind of fruits and melons and all kind of stuff that we can eat. You're just giving this manna. That's how you know you got some people that's just wicked as all hell, right? Verse 39 or verse 40, saying unto Aaron, make us gods to go before us. For as for this Moses, which brought us out of the land of Egypt, we want not what is become of him, right? So now he been up on that mount for how long?
40 days.
40 days. They got impatient. I don't know what's going on. It's over a month now. It's been a month and a half now, almost. We ain't seen Moses. I think he dead. I don't know where he at. You know where he at? Yeah, I think he gone. He gone, man. He either dead or he gone. But you know what we need though? We need a God. We know what guys we've seen before, like who was in Egypt. Aaron. Right? So now Aaron is left after Moses because he was one that was with Moses as the leader, right? It was those two. So now Aaron's still amongst the people. So who else are going to turn to? But Aaron, put him in a precarious situation. Hey, Aaron, we need some gods, man. You got to make us some gods, right? So now when you got Aaron, who now has the people all coming at him, he gave in, right? Reading again, verse 40, saying unto Aaron, make us gods to go before us, for as for this Moses, which brought us out of the land of Egypt, we want not what is become of him. And they made a calf in those days and offered sacrifice unto the idol and rejoiced in the works of their own hand. So you read that in Exodus 30, I think it's 32. While Moses was on the mount getting the law, the Most High said, look, man, you got to get down there because they done got and corrupted themselves. Get thee down off this mount. So yeah, Exodus 32. You can read that whole chapter, actually. Yep. And you see how the Most High dealt with them.
All right.
We have 42. Remember, matter of fact, in Exodus 32 and 33, right? Because when this happened, the Most High began to plague the children of Israel, right? He said, all right, those who for the Most High come here. And then Moses at one point wanted to take all the sins of the children of Israel on himself. Right. Most High said, no.
I got this name.
No, you didn't do it. They did it. I'm going to deal with them, right? Moses had that Paul-like mentality. I wish that I could be a curse from God, from Israel, or from Christ for Israel. My brethren, he wanted to take all the burden of Israel upon himself and save the whole nation. Yeah. Moses also wanted to do the same thing.
Y'all, when you get home, you write it down. Read Psalm 78, because they ain't want to listen. Psalm 78 is a good one to read.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So this is Exodus 32 and 34. It says, therefore now I go, lead the people unto the place of which I have spoken unto thee. Behold, my angel shall go before thee. Nevertheless, in the day when I will visit their sin upon them. And the Lord plagued the people because they made the calf which Aaron made. Right? So the Lord has already told them that the angel was going to be the one that was going to lead and direct and guide them to whatever it is that they were going to go. So now back to Acts 7 and 42. It says, then God turned and gave them up to worship the host of heaven, as it is written in the book of the prophets. O ye house of Israel, have you offered to me slain beasts and sacrifices by the space of 40 years in the wilderness? Right? So the Most High now gave them up because they was really not in the spirit of following him. Right? They had sin and iniquity always in their hearts. Right? So now remember, this is not all Israel. This is the generation of Israel that came or walked out of Egypt. 40 years, they began to still multiply. So the children after them were the ones who would then walk into the land of Egypt. So this is Psalms 81. Psalms 81, and I'm going to read from 11. Actually 10. Psalms 81 and 10. Right, to go with 42. So Psalms 81 and 10 says, I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt. Open thy mouth wide, and I will fill it. Right? What does that mean? Does it mean he's like, say everybody's standing there? No, he's talking about opening your heart. Right? That mouth was really talking about your heart, your mind, and he was going to feed you with knowledge, feed you with instruction. Right? So now it says, but my people would not hearken to my voice, and Israel would none of me, or have nothing to do with me. They didn't want to hear what I had to tell them. They didn't want to open up their minds to me. Right? They were just stubborn. Verse 12. So I gave them up unto their own heart's lust, and they walked in their own counsels. So they did what they wanted to do. Right? Every time I came and I showed favor, they went and had another recourse of what they wanted to do. When the Most High said, hey, I give you manna, they complained about the manna. When the Most High gave them quails, they complained about the quails. And then they had their own way that they want to do with the quails. So the Most High said, you know what? All right, I'll give it to you. But I'm going to give it to you. It's going to be coming out of your nostrils. Because that's how mad the Most High was. And then when he gave it to them, you read is that the Most High, when they got that quail, the Lord still killed them. Because as they was eating it, they still had a wicked heart about when they received it. So the Most High killed them even when they got the quails that they had asked for. That's why he says he gave them up to their own lust, because they just was never obedient to the Most High.
People living their desire for pleasurable things took over their spirit.
Yeah. It's like they still had that Egyptian mind state, right? They couldn't let go of that.
400 years, they ancestors was in them.
Yep. So we have verse 43. It says, verse 43, yeah, you took up the tabernacle of Molech and the star of your god Rephaim, figures which he made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon. Right? The Most High spoke about this, jumping forward even to the time of Amos. Amos, the 5th chapter. And the 25th verse. Amos 5 and 25. I'm sorry. Yeah, 5 and 25. It says, have ye offered unto me sacrifices and offerings in the wilderness 40 years, O house of Israel? But ye have borne the tabernacle of your Molech and your Cheam, your images, the star of your God, which he made to yourselves. Therefore will I cause you to go into captivity beyond Damascus, saith the Lord, whose name is the God of hosts. Right? So after they went and still followed after these images of the false gods, the Most High gave them up. And you know, when the Most High gives you up, that's it, right? You left on your own. You out there on the ledge by yourself. So going back to Acts 7 and 44 now. It says, our fathers had the tabernacle of witness in the wilderness. What's the tabernacle of witness?
The word of God.
Where you at?
I'm in Acts 7 and 44.
Tabernacle.
Our fathers had the tabernacle of witness in the wilderness.
No, I ain't got it. I thought I had it.
That's where they had the law, the testimony.
Meaning,
It's
The
a
commandments.
place. It's a place. It's a tent.
right, it's the tabernacle. Like when you read, when Moses and them went to do the sacrifices and the offerings, the burnt offerings, they built the tent in order to now do the service and office for the Most High.
You got a picture of that over there?
Where?
There was a picture here.
It might have been. Huh?
Tent.
Yeah, it's a tent, and you'll
Yeah.
see them doing the sacrifice. You just see the smoke going up. They had a certain area. Then within the in certain tabernacle, you had the holies of holies. All that the Most High told them to build, but it's called different things. It's called the tabernacle of the congregation, the tabernacle of testimony, the tabernacle of the tent of the congregation, the tabernacle of the house of God, the tabernacle of witness, the tabernacle of my house. These are all titles for the same thing.
Is that the point where they put a rope around you and you go in there?
No.
That's that movie. All right. That's the movie. All right, good.
Yeah, the tabernacle of witness, congregation, testimony, tent of the congregation, house of the Most High, or the tabernacle of my house. The Most High, it's like how the Most High has many titles when you read the scriptures. The deliverer, the tabernacle had different titles too, but that's what this is referring to,
Okay.
right? When they was in the wilderness, this is what they used to go and worship the Most High. It says, our fathers had the tabernacle of witness in the wilderness, as he had appointed, speaking unto Moses, that he should make it according to the fashion that he had seen. So what the Most High showed Moses on how to build it, that's what he went and constructed, right? Verse 45, which also our fathers that came after brought in with Jesus into the possession of the Gentiles, whom God drave out before the face of our fathers unto the days of David. So now when it says which also our fathers that came after brought in with Jesus into the possession of the Gentiles. What is that talking about?
Well, the Gentiles would be the ones who didn't believe. And Jesus was, he went out there.
Remember, he's going into history.
Well, he's going in the future.
He's going in the past. He's going into history. Joshua, right? Remember, Joshua and Jesus' name is the same thing, Savior, right? So now when you read Joshua in the ancient, when you see the word Joshua, it's the same parallel to Jesus, right? So remember, Joshua was the one who now went into the land of Canaan, and they took the tabernacle with them into the land of Canaan. That's what it's saying, which also our fathers that came after when we was in the wilderness, after we left the wilderness, we went into the promised land. It says, and brought in with Jesus, meaning Joshua, into the possession of the Gentiles. Who are the Gentiles? These Hamites who had our land at that time, right? It says, whom God drave out before the face of our fathers. The Most High was with Joshua and allowed them to conquer all of those Hamites, to take the land and then to divide it up for each tribe to have this portion and that portion, this portion. So while we was in the land, we still had this tabernacle, this tent-like structure, right? It says unto the days of David, right? Why does it say unto the days of David? Because what happened during the time of David? David wanted to do something, right? Let's go to 1 Chronicles. First, let's go to Joshua 3. So again, this is good history that Stephen is just breaking down in his council, in his trial, I should say. Joshua chapter 3. Joshua 3, and I'm going to read from 14. So it says in Joshua 3:14, and it came to pass when the people removed from their tents, remember the tabernacle back then was what? A tent. right? The Most High even told him what type of material had to be over the tent. And then when he made the holiest of holies where the Ark of the Covenant would dwell, it had to be of a certain type of thing, right? So it says, say again? Right, it was special. Verse 14, and it came to pass when the people removed from their tents where they dwelt and the tabernacle of the congregation to pass over Jordan, and the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people. And as they bear that, and as they that bear the ark were come unto Jordan, and the feet of the priests that bear the ark were dipped into the brim of the water, for Jordan overfloweth all his banks all the time of the harvest, that the waters which came down from above stood and rose up upon an heap very far from the city Adam that is beside Zeratan. And those that came down toward the sea of the plain, even the salt sea, failed and were cut off. And the people passed over right against Jericho. So during this time, when we was coming into the land, the Most High had it when the priests bearing the ark, when their foot touched Jordan River, the river stood up like the Red Sea did for Moses. And what fed that river coming to the salt sea, all of that got stopped so that nothing would come down and impede the children of Israel from going across the banks to Jericho, right? So it was not just one time when the Most High had the water stand up. It was not just 2 times when the Most High had the water stand up. It was 3 times. There's another time when the Most High had the water stand up on high like it did during the Red Sea. This is the second one. That's a mystery for you guys to go find out which one was the third one. But the key here is that they took the Ark of the Covenant, and the Ark of the Covenant rested in the tabernacle of the Most High, the tent. Verse 17, the priests that bear the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord stood firm on dry ground in the midst of Jordan. And all the Israelites passed over on dry ground until all the people were passed clean over Jordan. So it was as if, this is Joshua 3:14 on to the end. So this is as if the Ark of the Covenant, like how Moses ride, when the Most High told Moses ride the strike and the Red Sea stood on, when the priests that had the Ark, they got into the Jordan River, the river stood on high. And then they got in there and they stood there and waited with the Ark until everybody passed through. And then when everybody passed through and got on it, and then they went and left and became the back end, and they now was the last to come across, and then the waters went back. Yeah. Joshua. So now we read that about Joshua. So that all happened up until Joshua. Now we went into the days of David. Now go to 1 Chronicles. 1 Chronicles, chapter 22. What happened during the time of David? We're talking about the tabernacle. Chapter 22. 1 Chronicles chapter 22. And I'm going to read from 6. First Chronicles chapter 22, verse 6. Then he called for Solomon his son and charged him to build an house for the Lord God of Israel. So now this is David speaking to Solomon, saying that, listen, you got to build a house, meaning the tabernacle, the new tabernacle, not a tent no more, a building, right? It says, and David said to Solomon, my son, as for me, it was in my mind to build an house unto the name of the Lord my God. So this is where Stephen is now referencing. The tabernacle was the way it was unto the time of David. When David now comes on the scene, as he's saying, it was in my mind, my heart, that I was going to build a house for the Most High. But something happened. It says, but the word of the Lord came to me, saying, thou hast shed blood abundantly and hast made great wars. Thou shalt not build an house unto my name, because thou hast shed much blood upon the earth in my sight. Behold, a son shall be born to thee, who shall be a man of rest, and I will give him rest from all his enemies round about. For his name shall be Solomon, which is peaceable one. And I will give peace and quietness unto Israel in his days. Verse 10, he shall build an house for my name, and he shall be my son. And I will be his father, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever. Now, there's a duality in this. right? Because David could not build the temple, but Most High told David, your son gonna be the one that's gonna build it. You shed too much blood, right? You know, when you in war a lot, you unclean a lot. So to have time to be, orchestrating, officiating what goes on, you can't do that. You always out in war, you unclean. Nah, you got too much going on. I need to do it during a time period when everything is calm and quiet. Your son is going to have that period. I'm going to make him be at rest. He ain't got to fight no wars. Solomon never went to war because David did all that for him, right? David had it all locked down. So when Solomon took the throne, that was a period of peace when he reigned. And then he was allowed to go and build the temple for the Most High, right? But now what we read here, and I don't want to go to it too deep, what we read here is said that his kingdom was going to reign forever. I will establish the throne of his kingdom over Israel forever. That didn't happen. Solomon's kingdom didn't rule forever. It ended at a certain point, right? He had sons and everything else, but then during the time of the Greek Empire, matter of fact, during the time of the Babylonian Empire, that ended. Then we went from one captivity to the next captivity to the next captivity with no king. Then the Greeks came in and the Romans came in, no king. Even up till today, no king, right? So it said that David's son was going to build the house and his kingdom was going to be established forever. His son Solomon did build, as it's being said in the scriptures. I forget where it's at. Somebody if they know where you can find it. The greatest temple of all the world. That temple. Remember, we just read in the New Testament and think in John that the temple that Solomon had, right? And it was glorious in its making. Then Herod came, and 42 years, what is it, 42, 46 years, they was upgrading that temple, right? And guess what? It all got destroyed. The Romans, Titus and Vespasian, and they came in during the time starting from 70 AD, and they destroyed all of that. They destroyed all that whole temple, that whole thing destroyed, right? Christ told them one stone should not be left upon another stone, right? That Wailing Wall, that was not that was the extra stuff that Herod built. That was not the temple. That's that extra stuff. The temple got destroyed. It's not there no more, right? So what this is talking about is now speaking on something different, right? Just keep that in mind. You could put that as another mental note for another class because we already after 3 is way over, right? So now going back to Acts, to go into this temple, this tabernacle being built by David or under David's authority. So back in Acts 7 and 46, it says, who found favor before God and desired to find a tabernacle for the God of Jacob. But Solomon built him an house. Howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temple made with hands, as saith the prophet. Right? So during the time when Solomon built the temple for the Most High, when it was being dedicated, Solomon himself stated that, listen, even though he's building this temple, no man can build a temple for the Most High to dwell in, but this is going to be a place of worship to do the sacrifices. And when Israel get into the straits, they can look back to this temple and pray to the Most High, and he hears their prayers and such and such. So it was not to be a case where the Most High was going to come dwell and come down and sit and be sitting in the temple. Right. He's too grand for that, right? Too large for that. The earth is his footstool. He can't come and say, I'm going to come and that's with my house. You going to build me my house? I build you a house. It's like the Most High saying, you can't build me. I'm going to build you a house, right? In reality. Be quiet.
I have a scripture.
Go on.
1 Kings 8:27.
Go on.
First Kings 8:27. Read fast. Read. But will God indeed dwell on the earth? Behold, the heaven and heaven of heavens cannot contain thee. How much less this house that I have builded? So if they're gonna build a house for the Most High, based on the scripture, the house that they built for the Most High, the Most High given specification for how nice it should be and how well it should be built, just for a representation of what is in heaven, right? Just so you can capture the throne of the Most High, which is in heaven, which is an extension of the heavenly throne of the Most High. But the Most High himself will not come and dwell in it. It's just a symbolic for the Most High's throne, because the earth is an extension of the Most High's colony. It's like when you go and colonize different places, the earth is an extension, it's a colony of the heavens.
Gun. All right, let's go back. Remember, our brother Stephen is still on the hot seat, but he's bringing out some good history here, right? That ties in, is going into some things that we probably didn't even realize or we overlooked, right? That's why the history that, we go through is important. So now back in Acts 7, and we at verse 49, he's going to reiterate the same thing that we just read in 1 Kings. It says, heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. What house will ye build me, saith the Lord? Or what is the place of my rest? Have not my hand made all these things? The things that you got it from me. The earth, I put that into subjection. So how you gonna build me a house in the thing that I've now created or given orders to create? Verse 51. It says, ye stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears, ye who always resist the Holy Ghost, as your fathers did, so do ye. Now, Stephen is getting into these people, right? He's getting into the Libertines, Cyrenians, Alexandrians, and those from Asia and these other places. Because remember, they have false accusations against them, right? Knowing their history and knowing they are about and what they study, they are like the rest of our ancestors. They were rebellious. They're like those who was in the wilderness. They never really wanted to hear the word. They always bucked up, right? That's why we was talking about this, I think, in the class this evening, as far as for Kahan Nabiyah brought out, as far as for the militant group, that they got the guns. Forget no F's given or something like that, something crazy, some crazy name. And he asked about what do we think about them, but they're the same as in different periods. When you really go and search history and you search different time periods, these same type factions come up all the time, because in the same capacity it has the spirit of the prophets are subject to the prophets, that we come back in the regeneration, they come back in the regeneration, and they establish these same type groups. Like we brought out that he had the Zealots. The Zealots was all about uprising. They wanted to start the revolution right then and there, right? So someone would say, yeah, like the Black Panthers did. I don't know about some of the Black Panthers, but the Black Panthers was trying to defend their own. These give the appearance that they about to take charge, right? We about to do something now. What are you guys doing? You ain't doing nothing now. We about to go take, y'all just talking. We about to go take this now. They ain't waiting on the Most High. They ain't waiting on your house shot. They ready to go and take up arms and do this now. We waited so long. We ain't waiting on that. So you've had that happen in different periods in the past. That's why the history of the information is good. So you'll read certain names about the Libertines and the Cyrenians and the Alexandrians. You may want to go and do a deep search about these organizations to find out what they was really about. And then you'll be like, hold on. This sounds just like this organization that's here right now. It's a different name, but it's the same concept. Dad, they here again.
It's the fashion that changed. The clothing changed, but the spirit's still the same.
Spirit's still the same.
Jeans now, t-shirt and stuff like that, but the spirit's still the same.
Gun.
Fashion change.
Gabar.
Well, these northern tribes.
What, these here?
Yeah, it was Libertines and all. They were northern tribes.
I wouldn't even just say northern tribes, because even Paul and them, he was in Rome. You had Benjamites and Judites that was scattered around as well. So it was just it wasn't just like northern tribes that was just scattered about. Even in Israel, like the sister that we read during the 6th chapter, Anna the prophetess, she was a northern tribe, but was living in Israel. So when we say, yeah, the southern kingdom, and we say it's predominantly Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, that predominantly word is the key. Predominantly, it was Judah, Benjamin, and Levi because it was the kingdom of Judah. But during that period, you had the other tribes there. Matter of fact, when you read the chapters, it'll even tell you that you know that these northern tribes was even classified a title as being Gentiles, right? Based on their region or where they occupied and where they lived. The majority of them were not there. It was predominantly the southern kingdom or the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. But you had them scattered throughout as well, right? Remember, during the Maccabees, these were Levites that you read about with the Maccabees or in the southern kingdom. So now when all this is going on, the priests and things that was running the show with Judas and Simon and all of these men, and then you got these high priests. They was the ones not just doing the priest, they was out fighting. You don't see that today. You ain't going to have a priest or a minister out there in the front line like how you see in today's setup, like how it was back then. They fought.
They were Levites?
I believe they was Levites. They were the priests. They were the priests. So, but because they dealt with the priesthood. They set up went and orchestrated the temple and all that. And then Simon, he had to do. But again, during that time of the Greek Empire, you had the southern kingdom that was still there in Judea. And then the Greeks began to expand. And then that's when we started to give ourselves spiritually over to their customs. So then we started to go here and go there and go there. So you have some of us that's out there in Rome, some of us that's out there in Corinth, some of us that's there. You also had the northern tribes that was there as well. So it was not that it was only one kingdom and another kingdom. You had a mixture, right? And that's why I highlight that sister Anna the prophetess, because she was a northern tribe sister who gave herself to the temple night and day, right? Asher, she was from Asher, what we would consider like Brazilian, I think Colombia to Brazil, all the way over. But let's finish up. I can see we're about to go again. Where we at? 7 and 52? Right. Start at 51. Ye stiff-necked and uncircumcised in heart and ears, you do always resist the Holy Ghost. As your fathers did, so do ye. Which of the prophets have not your fathers persecuted? And they have slain them which showed before of the coming of the just one, of whom ye have now been the betrayers and murderers. So he went through all that history to be on point with what he's talking about, to justify himself, to start all the way back from Abraham, right? To bring it up into Moses, to bring it up into Joshua in his time, to bring it up into David in his time, Solomon in his time. And during those periods, he kind of highlighted how all the different things was going on. You just like them. They was wicked back then during Moses' time. They was wicked back then doing. Y'all always been like this. You're like your fathers, right? Remember how we tell Esau, prepare slaughter for the iniquity of their fathers? Because they was the ones in the past generations that did what they did to our ancestors. Now it's the same thing within Israel. Some of our own Israelite brothers are like their foreparents. They were the ones who were slaughtering and killing the prophets of the past. The same ones. When Jeremiah went out and said, listen, we're going to go into captivity. We're going to go into this Babylon. No, we're not. What are you talking about? Right? This guy's bugging out. And Jeremiah's like, listen, you're going to either go in the easy way or you're going to go in the hard way. The Most High said, hey, we ain't hearing that. And they went and locked up Jeremiah, beat him and locked him up. Right? So now they did that to Jeremiah and these brothers. Here it is. And they didn't realize what Jeremiah was saying at the time was right. So he's like, you just like them. Y'all don't see that y'all now doing the same thing to the righteous men today to tell you the right thing, and you want to persecute and throw into prison and kill them the same way that they did back then. So he called them, it says, of whom ye have now been the betrayers. You betrayed and alienated the right way, and murderers. Now you want to justify your killing, right? Verse 53. who have received the law by the disposition of angels and have not kept it, right? The law came to our ancestors. The angel gave us the law, right? Not just the 10, but all of it. Gave us the law of sacrifice. Gave us the covenants and the agreements, the promises. But y'all didn't keep them, right? We as a nation didn't keep them, but you specific ones are the rebellious ones, right? Verse 54, when they heard these things, they were cut to the heart, and they gnashed on him with their teeth, right? So they stand there and they listening to this, and they hearing him bring out all these points, bring out this history, and now it's condemning them, right? When you condemn somebody with the word and you can't speak against the word, what happens? Anger sets in. It's like, they now got to grab him up, right? They want to do some damage to him, right? So it says in verse 55, but he, being full of the Holy Ghost, looked up steadfastly into heaven and saw the glory of God and Yahushua standing on the right hand of power. So while all this is going on and they're going through all of this emotional roller coaster in themselves about how they feeling condemned, and he just put them out there on Front Street spiritually with the scriptures, with the word. And then he look up and he's now seeing through the heavens, and he's seeing Yahweh sitting on his throne, and Yahushua seated at the right hand or standing at the right hand of him. And then what do you think he does? It says, and said, behold, I see the heavens open and the Son of Man standing on the right hand of God. So now with all this history, and they don't believe in what he's preaching. They was already disputing him. They was already disputing Christ. So now it's like, okay, he's aligning this person to being that prophet. We don't buy that. We know that these things are real, but we don't buy that. So now when he said, I see the Most High and I see Christ standing, oh, that's it. That's it. That's it. Right now, the whole council is going into hysteria.
Like, I know you don't see that.
Right now you bugging. Now you don't took it to the next level. Now you don't took that straw. That's it.
That's too much.
This is too much, right? So listen what they said, verse 57. Then they cried out aloud with a loud voice and stopped their ears and ran upon him with one accord. So I imagine everybody in there like, no, shut up, I don't want to hear. Ah, they all charge him and they grab him up, right? So now they end the council. He now finished speaking. He sees this vision of the Most High and Yahushua, and he declares it to them. They so infuriated, they went with one accord, yelling and screaming, and grabbed him up and took him up out of that place. Verse 58, and cast him out of the city. So now they leave from the place, and they as a mob, a mob is taking him out of the city to somewhere else so they can go deal with him. It says, and stoned him. And the witnesses laid down their clothes at a young man's feet, whose name was Saul. The witnesses laid down their clothes at a young man's feet, meaning like when they went and stoned him, to the clothes that was left of him, it was put down and said, this is what, it's like a witness. It's like a thing. You know how the Most High said, if somebody doesn't want to take a brother's wife, they were supposed to. They're supposed to go and
If he died and the brother died,
right. And I forget with a shoe or something with a shoe or something. So it's like a testimony that this thing just happened, right? So now everybody bears witness. Now Saul, while Saul is here, while Saul is mentioned, because Saul is who?
Paul.
Saul is Paul. Paul was what? What was Paul at this time? He was the one who persecuted the church. He was in line with this because Paul went out, and anyone who spoke against or spoke about Christ, he went and got them to be crucified or persecuted. So this is not somebody coming and bringing to Paul like, oh, look what we did to one of your own. At this point, Paul was not rolling with Yahushua. This don't happen until later on in Acts, I think the 9th chapter, when Paul on the way to Damascus gets stopped by Yahushua and his heart is changed. No, Paul ain't jump on board. So when they went and he was with this. So when they went and stoned him, he was one of the leaders that always went and did this type thing. So
was he there at that? Or we don't know.
What, when this happened? Oh, when he there when they stoned him. Oh, it says I mean, when they did, it says, and the witnesses laid down their clothes at a young man's feet whose name was Saul. It says, and they stoned Stephen, calling upon God, saying, Lord Jesus, receive my spirit. So, so now it was as if this was another one that they got that was, you know, going out there preaching and doing this stuff. Now, remember what we read a few weeks back, because when the brothers was going out, the apostles going out, what kept happening? They kept getting apprehended by the leaders, saying, listen, y'all need to stop preaching like this. Then they would beat them up, throw them in prison. Then they go have a council.
Oh, yeah,
Peter and them. Then they go have a council and let them go. And they said, listen, y'all better not say it again. Yeah. Then they say, oh, man, look how they dealing with us. And they get them again. Then it was to the point they wanted to kill him. And they said, listen, y'all better not kill these brothers. Y'all better not do this, because if y'all do, and this is of the Most High, ooh, y'all don't know what's going to happen to you.
Who said that?
Dude's one of the brothers in Acts the
They said one to go back there to get him out of here.
5th chapter.
What you say it again?
Acts the 5th chapter. This was Gamaliel. This was one who taught Paul. The brother Gamaliel said this in Acts the 5th chapter and the 34th verse to the 40th verse.
34, 40.
34, 40. I'll read it because I'm interested in reading it now.
Oh, really?
So it says in Acts 5:34, then stood there up one in the council, a Pharisee named Gamaliel, a doctor of the law, had in reputation among all the people, and commanded to put the apostles forth a little space, and said unto them, ye men of Israel, take heed to yourselves what ye intend to do as touching these men. For before these days rose up Thaddeus, boasting himself to be somebody, to whom a number of men, about 400, joined themselves, who were slain, and all, as many as obeyed him, were scattered and brought to naught. And this man rose up, Judas of Galilee, in the days of the taxing, and drew away much people after him, also perished. And all, even as many as obeyed him, were dispersed. And now I say unto you, refrain from these men, meaning don't do anything, leave them alone, and let them alone. For if this counsel or this work be of men, it will come to naught. Meaning whatever they preaching, if it's of men, it's going to fizzle out, just like these other two brothers did. Verse 39, but if it be of God, ye cannot overthrow it, lest haply ye be found even to fight against God. So if these men are out here preaching and it's the Most High that sent them, and you going down trying to stop or stunt the growth of these men, you really fighting against God, and you don't know what you getting yourself into. So now this was his advice to them, right? Verse 40, and to him they agreed, and when they had called the apostles and beaten them, they commanded that they should not speak in the name of Jesus, and let them go. So that's the whole thing that's going on. You're not supposed to speak on Jesus' name. We don't want you to talk about that man. He's dead, he's gone. You keep carrying this on, it's still going to stunt our growth, because you're now going to take people away from what we talking about to go follow this and this man, right? So that's why they was doing what they was doing to Peter and them. Paul was along with that. He was a main catalyst to go and find these men out who was teaching these things about Yahushua, until Yahushua came and spiritually waking him up, right? So now when they go and they deliver these clothes to Saul, it's like, yep, we got another one. Yeah, we got another one. We done stone another one. He was out here, yeah, speaking on. Exactly, right? Right. So now go back to Acts 7. 59, I'm gonna read 5:59 again. So it says, and they stoned Stephen, calling upon God, meaning Stephen, as he's being stoned, peppered with these rocks, he's calling upon the name of the Most High and saying, Lord, Yahushua, receive my spirit. Same thing Yahushua said to the Most High. Most High, into your spirit, into your hand, I commend my spirit, right? Verse 60, and he kneeled down and cried with a loud voice, Lord, lay not this sin to their charge. And when he had said this, he fell asleep, meaning he died, right? So he's there, and they got him in a certain spot out of the city, and they're Every man's picking up stones and hitting them. And as they hitting them, he's calling upon the Most High, right? And then he's now about to give up the ghost. And at the end, he took a knee and said, Father, forgive him, right? That takes a high level of forgiveness that Yahushua had now taught, that says, listen, even when you on the verge of death by your hands of your own, you know that they don't know better because they didn't believe Yahushua, but Yahushua was who he was. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Please lay not this sin to them, meaning to really jack them up, right? They was going to have to be judged, but you want favor to be shown to them, right? That's the high level of faith and compassion for your people, even in the midst of the adversity that you are now having to deal with physically. That's you know, when the disciples asked you, how shall increase our faith? That's what a lot of us would have to say. We need our faith increase. We need to experience certain things in order for us to reach that level where somebody punching me or trying to kill me and they're doing it wrongfully, that I don't want to see them really jacked up. I still love them as my brother. They didn't understand. They didn't see Yahushua for who he was, or accept what Stephen was teaching as being the right teaching. All right. So that now finally concludes the so now next week, remember what we're doing next week? You got the list. So last week, so it's in
Next week, that's the 8th, right? Ecclesiasticus 3:4.
Ecclesiasticus, the 3rd chapter and the 4th chapter for next week's Sabbath service. All right. So it was a lot that came out in today's Sabbath service. The water for those that logged on, that endured with us. You know, sometimes when we go long, you know, sometimes you kind of get weary, but I think this one was exciting a bit to go back and forth to. Huh?
I mean, actually, if you don't have to go out, you should be happy to last long.
Right.
Because the Sabbath should be
feel like this. Yeah.
And put aside for the Most High, aside from anything else.
Right.
Even if it lasts until the end of the Sabbath.
Right.
So that time is supposed to be put separate from the Most High. Anything with scripture, that's what we should be doing.
Good.
Was it Nehemiah
For what?
that he preached until?
Yeah.
It's like for hours.
Right. Nehemiah, I think it was 9, something like that.
He preached. And the people stood by him.
I got my bag in my bag, bro. And they got one in there. Well, I think she got
Right. Nehemiah, the 9th chapter.
Nehemiah
9, 1 to 3. 9, 1 to 3.
Always here. Not on Tuesday, Friday. I was here last night.
Nehemiah. Nehemiah 9 and 3. Nehemiah 8 and 3.
Okay, what is it for next
So
week?
now 8 and 3 and 9 and 3 goes into when they first came back. This is him bringing out the point when we came back into the land and we were trying to reestablish that the priests went and read out of the law for a good portion of the day. Right? It says and 8 and 3 was from morning until midday, and they stood in the gate. Right? It wasn't like we sit down in the class, you just get up and you just go, you know, they were standing out in the gate hearing the law from morning until midday. And then it says 8 and 3. And then Nehemiah 9 and 3, it says, and they stood up in their place and read in the book of the law of the Lord, their power 1/4 part of the day. And another 4th part, they confessed and worshiped the Lord their God. So half the day was reading the law and confessing and praying to the Most High.
Okay.
Right, so if it's 24 hours in a day, 12 hours was dedicated to that.
Daily?
this day,
Okay.
on that day.
Okay.
But on high holy days and Sabbath, that's if you can help it, right? Everything should be about the Most High. So reading scriptures, anything that has to do with keeping yourself away from any distraction, because that's the only day you have, right, to dedicate to the Most High. Right? If you're at work, you could be, reading the scriptures, one or two scriptures, but your mind is not really focused on the Most High. But the high holy days should be focused solely on the Most High to get closer to the Most High in His Word. So that's even if it takes long, if you don't have to go out, that day should be reserved for the Most High to begin.
Yeah.
If it's like any other day where you're checking this, checking that, it shouldn't be about that.
Yeah. Right. And sometimes, like, even when we're doing the Sabbath service, and the Sabbath service chapters are short, there's many things that you can go and do research and check up on. There's a lot of different things that you can go and get more clarification and more history, more understanding on that adds into and aids not only just for yourself, but for the rest of us. So that, there may be certain things that you may focus on, first thing that he may focus on. He may focus on health things, right? And just say, I'm going to start looking at certain things with herbs and everything else. And then he start going into the scriptures about mandrakes. It's in the scriptures. But now you go deep dive into mandrakes and different things throughout the Bible, and then it leads you to bring forth more spiritual understanding for everybody else. The next one may say, okay, I want to go into, the temple. I want to go into the archaeology of when we was actually in this land and doing the research, and they'll find out what they got in these museums and bring that forth, where a lot of people may not realize that some of these images and carvings is there. So the Sabbath should be filled with, the class going through the scriptures, prayer, and then doing alms, going out teaching. There's a whole lot that you can do in righteousness to build yourself up as well as building others up, right? So, for us, some of us, when the Sabbath goes long, that it to those who are in tune with the Spirit, it goes long, but it's like that was good. And you look around, damn, it's 3:30. Man, time was flying. Yeah, because we was moving in the Spirit, right? We started at 10 and now it's 3:30. Man, we was going at it for at least 5 hours or so, right? Of just going through scriptures. Whereas that's a beautiful thing. And then you'll start to realize when Moses on the mount for 40 days, 40 nights, and he didn't eat anything. And you say, how did he be on the mount for 40 days and 40 nights and not eat anything? And he just getting history and prophecy and law and everything else. Yeah. Imagine how Moses felt when the Most High was breaking down the beginning. When the Most High was telling him, this is how the earth was created. This is how I did the atmosphere in the heavens. And this is how the fish came. And this is how the birds came. And Moses was like, what? We speculated on this all this time, and now I'm getting the unadulterated truth. That had to be glorious.
And that's where also fasting come in.
Right.
Because not eating any for 40 days, right? When you don't eat, it's pretty much you put the body in subjection. You tell them who's in control. Right? You put it in control, and then the spirit takes over. So that means you deny the body of the pleasurable things that he needs, right? For the purpose of spiritual things. That's how you get more in tune with the Most High, by denying the body, from spiritual meat. Physical meat. Right? And then you pretty much get over. And for example, people would say, I think we gotta do a class on that. People would say you starve if you don't eat for 1 day or 2, 3 days. The thing is, you don't begin to starve until 30, 39 day, the 30th day. That's why the body's designed to go 40 days. That's why Yahushua demonstrated. Moses did it, right? So it can go for 40 days before you begin to it lose its energy and the fats in your body, right? Your body uses the fat for energy all that time you fasting. Right then, after the 40 days, if you go beyond it, you start feeding your muscles. And David talks about it as well. David lost a lot of weight, and people was making fun of him, right, when they see him. Right? So fasting is a way of denying the body of pleasurable things for the purpose of spiritual things. That's how you get things downloaded. That's how you get more. Most I can reveal more to you when you fast, because you have that type of control over the body.
Con. All right, so we're gonna stop service here. Send out the closing prayers. And most high's will, everybody has a blessed and Tawah remaining Sabbath. Stay strong throughout the spirit. Again, if you got any questions or comments you want to deep dive, make sure you write them down. So when we come to the classes Tuesday, Friday, we go into them. I think we got like 2 or 3 things that we talked about today that we want to bring forth or bring forward. And we'll touch on them most high's will next week. So again, I say shalom, peace to all the brothers and sisters, and happy remaining Sabbath. Stay tuned for the closing prayers. So I said the lights. Barakatha Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Netalanawa, Par Yahagapin, Thawada Amun, La Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ath, Yasha Allah. English translation. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, or the Most High in the name of Christ, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it. To Yahweh in the name of Yahweh Shai with Israel. A Madra upon you, Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Baba Kushai, Shemai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalak, Maika Allah, Waha Allahayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shemal Ayah, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wahakaziyat, Bunya, Yasha Allah, Washalak, Lanawa, Rabium, Kakama, Rabium, Da'aith, Rabium, Bayana, Rabium, Sabalonwa, Rabium, Amawan, Rabium, Aqua, Rabium, Ahabium, Rabium, Agana, Rakanaya, Wasalak, Kao, Kata Ayamnawa, Laha Akim, Wa'akiwa, Wayasha Allah, Thumb Yad, Waiwalam, Bahasham, Yahushai, so water, Amun. English translation. Most High, in the name of Christ, please listen to us now, right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers or angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection. And forgive all our sin for the brothers and sisters in Israel, always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you, so be it. Four Corners prayer. Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha Allah, Wabat Yasaparim, Shema, Yasharallah, Yahweh, Allah, Yahweh, English translation. Most High name of Christ, bless us in Israel and the house of books or schools. And Deuteronomy 6:4, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one power. Again, we'll say Ashar Shabbat, Shalom, Yasha Allah, peace and blessings to all. Most High's will, everybody stay safe. Shalom.
Shalom.